Li Yuchen thought for a moment. Sure enough, it felt much better. Contadeo goes. Watch Li Yuchen and the others go away. Xu Qian'an took 2 colleagues into the hook bar. I was familiar with the road and asked for a private seat on the 2nd floor. Call a few beautiful girls to accompany the wine. Song Tingfeng said helplessly, I am a prodigal son, and I turned back. However, there are always some fox friends around me. Xu Qian'an didn't bother to complain about him. We all know you're the same boy you used to be. Lao Dao quickly arranged the most beautiful girl in the store. Not long after, a group of warblers and warblers walked up. Nicholas Song's love for work in internal medicine was extinguished instantly. Instead of a brain full of green, fat, red, and thin, Xu Qian'an joked, what to say? Or you'd better find these. I'll sell it for you. Nicholas Song smiled awkwardly, not delaying. After listening to these songs, take them again. Xu Qian'an almost laughed when he heard this. It was at this time. There was a sound of glass smashing in the lobby on the 1st floor. A drunken knight pointed at the crowd and cursed. I have heard that extravagance in the capital has become a trend. Up to the dignitaries, down to the peddlers' pawns. Each is greedy for pleasure. I didn't believe it at first. This time into Beijing. But a little time, what caught my eye was actually some criminal policemen with stinky wine and meat. The heroes of the North and South cities carried the stinky monks and showed off their might. So many days have passed. There were no masters in the battle, are all watching from the sidelines. Last night, the Buddha Gate came down. In my Dafeng capital city, question our Xi Tianjian's treacherous government. Is it tolerable or intolerable? The court didn't care. Could it be that my Dafeng is afraid that Buddhism will not succeed? Think about the Battle of Shanhaiguan 20 years ago. How powerful Dafeng is. Nicholas Song put down his wine glass. Push away the woman snuggled in her arms. The doctor scolded him for being disappointed. Xu Qian'an smiled and said, let's drink ours. Leave this nosy alone. We don't have to worry about it when the sky falls. After saying that, he added a sentence in his heart, masters. It's good to work harder to make Emperor Yuan Jing even more embarrassed. It is best for historians to write a note. Yuan Jing, 37 years. The Western region's mission entered Beijing. The little monk was tired for 5 days without a single worship. The old monk drew a picture of the law and questioned the imperial court. The black history of Emperor Yuan Jing has another stroke. At this time, a white-clothed man of the government office carried a gong. Rushing past the streets, while striking the gong, he shouted Xi Tianjian. It is necessary to fight with the Buddhist monks. Let's go to the bulletin board to see the emperor list. When Xu Qian'an took Nicholas Song and Zhu Guangxiao. Come to the inner city. Bulletin board at the city gate. The spacious square was crowded with people and people. The guards of the city and a few watchmen, responsible for maintaining order. Xu Qian'an took off his saber. The irascible angry shouted that it was all special, don't squeeze it. Stand up for Lao Tzu. Don't run around. The people saw that they were beating the watchmen. They all gave way to a way. Xu Qian'an and his 2 colleagues walked in easily. The content of the list is simple. Roughly speaking, the Western region's mission came from afar. The court warmly welcomed, after some friendly consultations, jointly developed the concept of sustainable development. Relations between the 2 countries will become even closer. We all make progress together. Work hard to get rich. But Nicholas Song, a stunned young man, couldn't understand it. Complained about what this is written. Blind as a whole bunch of must. How to fight. Still didn't say. The taciturn Zhu Guangxiao explained to him. The senior monk of the Western regions proposed to fight with Xi Tianjian. Conduct technical exchanges. Xi Tianjian readily agreed. Both sides will be tomorrow. A grand event was held in the main square of the stargazing tower. At that time, the people of the city can go and watch on their own. Nicholas Song complained and said just a few words. Do you need to write so much in the above official documents? Xu Qian'an thought about it. found that Li Yuqian also brought someone over. Li Yuqian saw that order was well maintained. After returning from Yunzhou, he was relieved. The three of you have finally gotten rid of your former laziness. It has become more mature and stable. The three brothers who had just come out of the hook bar, grinning in response to this, shows that we have grown. The sun is shining brightly at noon. Chu Kaiwei sat on the gossip platform. Is the teacher going to play in person? Kinamasa drank a little wine, basking in the sun. Be at ease. Kaiwei, if the teacher makes a move, the Bodhisattva himself had to come. Dude just wants to fight me. Not to fight me. Chu Kaiwei tilted her head. Then who are you going to send to battle? Senior sister Zhongli is haunted by bad luck. Kill 800 enemies. Self-inflicted damage of 8,000. Senior brother Song and I are both alchemists. Not good at fighting. The second senior brother is not in the capital. Only senior brother Yang can play. Jianjing sighed. It was really unfortunate. Your senior brother Yang went crazy in practice yesterday. Can't play. Chu Kaiwei was taken aback. Suddenly, the pastry in my mouth was not fragrant. A delicate frown furrowed. I'm worried about what to do. Tianzeng is also annoying to be a teacher. So, I want you to go to the palace. Ask your majesty for someone. Just after noon, Emperor Yuan Jing was leading the officials to study the Taoist scriptures. Listen to the female national teacher explain the classic meaning. But he couldn't calm down. Luo Yuheng said softly, Your Majesty. It's worrying about fighting the law. Emperor Yuan Jing hesitated. Said, although I am full of confidence in Tianzeng. However, the country is prepared to fight this time. If you lose, what is the face of Dafeng? Luo Yuheng's system of defending the Daoist warlock is more special. It is indeed not safe not to respect combat power. In all systems today, the warlock system is the weakest. His area of expertise is not his personal strength. Rather, it is to strengthen the country. The reason why the Daebong army is invincible. Good armament is one of the key factors. And those amazing siege machines, and artillery, bed crossbows, and so on. It's all from Tianjin. This is something that the rest of the system cannot do. 9. Doctors save lives and help the wounded. 8 pins of Wang Qi Master and 7 pins of Feng Shui Master. It's the ley line. Improve Feng Shui. These are extremely strong support skills. Even if it's 4 products. SRA mages are actually supports. What they are best at is not fighting. It's about refining magic weapons. Warlocks need to be attached to the dynasty. The two are in a symbiotic relationship. Luo Yuheng said, Your Majesty might as well go and invite the Dean of Yunlu Academy. In major systems, the 5 husbands have the strongest combat power, but it's about which system is the best. There are no shortcomings. That's only Confucianism. Confucianism can cope with any situation, no matter how superb the means of Buddhism are. Confucianism can also be settled. Emperor Yuan Jing shook his head and said to the national teacher, Last year, I deliberately let Dean Zhao have an accident. But he refused. Luo Yuheng sighed. He understood the implication of these words. It is, Emperor Yuan Jing also invited the scholars of Yunlu Academy. While we were talking, the old eunuch hurried in. Bow and say, Your Majesty. Chu Kaiwei, who came to the palace to report to Tianjin, was ordered by his master to ask to see him. Emperor Qian'an of Yuanjing begged to see you on the orders of his master. Let him come to Lingbao to see me. Chu Kaiwei received the call. Immediately came to Lingbao Pass. I bowed and saw Your Majesty. I've seen the national teacher. Emperor Yuan Jing looked at Tianjin, the little junior sister in the eyes of the white-clothed warlock. Testimony for you to come to me. What is this so-called? Chu Kaiwei said thoughtfully. That is true. The third senior brother Yang Qian'an accidentally went crazy while practicing yesterday. The second senior brother is not in the capital. Senior brother Song and I are not good at fighting. Emperor Yuan Jing frowned and interrupted Qindao. What Miriam Yang practiced and went crazy, Chu Kaiwei said unhurriedly. Therefore, the supervisor asked me to borrow someone from His Majesty. This heavenly sword. Fight with the bald donkey of the western regions. Emperor Yuan Jing frowned and asked, borrowing people to commit adultery. Who do you want? Chu Kaiwei's voice is crisp. Beat the silver gong of the watchman. Xu Qian'an suddenly quieted down. It's been a long time. Xu Qian'an asked for confirmation in an uncertain tone. I'm going to fight. Emperor Yuanjing's Chun Dao fighting method is usually divided into literary fighting and martial fighting. Fighting evil and treacherous government are hard to find masters in the world. Won't do it personally. This is often the case. Matters between disciples. Xu Qian'an was puzzled. I know all of this. The bigwig sat in the back and pointed. Charged by the disciples. But what does this have to do with me? At this time, Emperor Yuan Jing said lightly. The supervisor has just pointed out to the people of the town boundary that you should fight. Xu Qian'an raised his head suddenly. Looked at Emperor Yuan Jing in astonishment. Prove what your bad old man is doing. I know that the book of God is in me. You also sent me to the Buddha's door. Xu Qian'an immediately said that his humble position was low. Only sparse and shallow. I'm afraid I can't do it. Your Majesty, please. Humble refusal. Emperor Yuan Jing snorted. The traitorous government has been decided. Naturally, it will not change. I promise you to come. Not to hear that from you. I'm here to tell you. This fighting method is the official and the great dedication to the face. You have to do everything you can to win. Xu Qian'an really wanted to shave his ears. You don't want to look at my cultivation. You don't want to think about how I can win. Lingbao, officer sighed. A woman with a beautiful piece of jewelry doesn't need to be communicated. Went straight into the Lingbao Pass. Pool by the gazebo. A woman with a character sitting cross-legged on the side. National teacher Luo Yuheng. The woman hid behind the rockery. Quietly pick up a pebble. Took advantage of the unpreparedness to smash Luo Yuheng. But when the stone was close to Luo Yuheng 3 feet, suddenly it was bounced back by an air shield. Hit the woman in the forehead accurately. He groaned. Cover your forehead. Annoyed, the second-grade master is amazing. Can a second-grade master bully people casually? Luo Yuheng opened his eyes. Helplessly. What are you going to do? It's okay. Don't disturb my rest. The woman came to the pool with her skirt in hand. Said with great interest. Buddhism wants to fight against the traitorous government. There's a lively scene to watch. However, the Daofa square was heavily guarded. I couldn't get up close. Luo Yuheng said. You can disguise afterward. Let someone else take you in. The woman said irritably. After the disguise. No one knows me. How to bring me in? He seemed to feel deflated. Diverting the subject, I'll tell you. That Xu Qian'an is really annoying. I've met him several times. It's just a hanger. Luo Yuheng said lightly, with your posture. Isn't that human? The woman snorted a few times. Look. You don't really talk to me. I didn't think about it. How can I show my true colors? In that case, that disciple must have fallen in love with me on the spot. I've changed my appearance. I was disguised. Although it is an unremarkable appearance. But a woman with excellent temperament and charm. Luo Yuheng's impatient interruption temperament and charm are excellent. Isn't that reasonable to be smooth in front of you? He was dumbfounded for a moment. Stay for a moment. Luo Yuheng said again, you know, tomorrow will replace Si Tianjian. Who is it that came forward to fight with Buddhism? Luo Yuheng didn't sell it either. Directly said the answer that surprised him. The woman turned around suddenly. Keep your eyes open. He replaced Si Tianjian. He was immediately a little angry. Pinched his waist and said disdainfully, I am a big phoenix. It's no one. Actually let a stinky boy represent Si Tian's sword fighting method. He shivered and froze for a moment. Seeing Luo Yuhan close his eyes and meditate again, it also fell silent. This side of Haochi building, Wei Yuan said that he had nothing to do with himself. Just do your best. Xu Qian'an was worried that if he lost, I'm sure I'll be punished by your majesty. Wei Yuan smiled and said, don't worry. Maybe tomorrow's fight. It's not as difficult as you might think. Xu Qian's eyes lit up with Wei Gong. You know the insider. Wei Yuan reminded to use your brain. What is the stake in the fight? That's the Diamond Sutra and the Heavenly Machine Disc. The Heavenly Machine Disc is a solid half-body magic weapon. There is no other way in the world. The fight was lost. You were just punished by your majesty. And he's going to lose a treasure. If you are not sure, you will be supervised. The certificate will borrow orders from his majesty. Xu Qian muttered in his heart, am I so powerful? I don't know myself. Early the next morning, Tianjin has an empty square as the location of this fight. More than 1,000 forbidden troops surrounded the square. It is forbidden to approach people and others. If the people in the city and the people in the rivers and lakes want to watch, it is only possible to wait and see from the periphery. Somewhere inside the pergola, Linen chattered endlessly. Peach Blossom eyes. Look around. Where's the dog minion? Why didn't he come out? He can't fight those bald donkeys. The eldest princess, Chun Sheng, interrupted him. Don't worry. It's not started yet. In another shed, Nangang Shinro asked about such an important thing as the fighting method. Why didn't I see your majesty? Wei Yuan said gently, your majesty is a traitor. I'm looking down on the gossip platform. In a shed next to it, commanded Su Lingle, who felt sorry for his brother. Looking at the beauties around me. Are those all princesses? Annie sighed. We were able to be with the nobles. See the fighting up close. It's all stained with that kid's light. Su Pingji was not so emotional. On the contrary, it is worried, because on the way here, they were stopped by an old woman. Also said that he was a friend of Su Ningyan. We have to come and observe the Dharma together. He didn't think much about it before agreeing. But calm down now. Nothing feels right. Su Pingji tentatively said to this aunt. You really know Xu Qian? The old aunt said impatiently. She and I are old acquaintances. She was the one who asked me to come to you. Bring me in. Watch the fight together. Second Uncle Su swore so much when he saw him. It's even more uncertain. Will Kuning really get acquainted with an aunt of this age? It's weird. The clan has 2 handfuls. Immediate location. Wang Jinwen, the capital, took a sip of wine. Aware of her daughter's gaze, I kept looking at the area where the yamen of the watchman was located. Asked Muir with a smile. What are you looking at? The young lady withdrew her gaze, responding to her daughter with a shallow smile. Is it the first time I have seen the famous Wei Gong? Sure enough, the bearing is extraordinary. Miss Wang then asked the Western Region's mission. What is the entry into Jingwei this time? This is an unreasonable way to fight. It's just puzzling. Wang Shoufu waved his hand a little impatiently. Your daughter's house. Don't bother about the court. That belly of trickery. Let the spirit be used on your husband in the future. Miss Wang pursed her lips. No more talking. While my father didn't care, he set his sights on the yamen of the root-tapping people. He secretly wanted to wait for the fight to end, so I held a literary meeting at the house. On the other side, the aunt looked at Huaiqing and asked Master, look at the princess. Is it the one who came to worship Ningyan that day? Su Pingji sighed. It's kind of a response to his wife. Annie continued. The princess in the red dress beside him. It's also very handsome. It's just that the eyes seem to make people look at it. Not very serious. Su Pingji was taken aback. Hurriedly interrupted him in a low voice. Don't talk nonsense. Don't get carried away on such occasions. Princess, do you want to be beheaded all over the house? Aren't you stupid? But once you think about it, you will return to the future. Hurriedly shut up and didn't dare to say any more. The old aunt said lightly, what can't be said? The big phoenix is not a good thing. Xu Pingji has the heart to die. Look at the people around you. All of them are the masters who don't want to die. I don't know when. Little Bean Ding walked on his short legs. Walked in front of the eunuch and Tsing Yi. He held his face high, stupidly looking at the food on the table. Uncle said with infinite longing, "Can I eat your stuff?" Xu Pingji, who saw this scene, Maya the tail vertebrae, ran all the way to the celestial spirit belt. Mrs. Yang, who had worshipped Xu Qian'an, recognized Xiao Doubting. Busy said, "Wei Gong. This is Su Ningyin's young beauty." Jean Lona heard this. Looking at Xiao Doubting's gaze, he suddenly softened. At the same time, I admired this child in my heart. Don't be afraid to be bold. It will become a great thing in the future. Wei Yuan picked up a piece of candied fruit and handed it over. Xiao Doubting is not afraid of life at all. It was natural to take the preserves. Put in your mouth. Let's chirp and eat it. It was swallowed in a few bites. Wei Yuan smiled and said that candied fruit is not eaten like this. The longer it is in your mouth, the longer the sweetness. Little Beanie held out his hand, looking at the gentleness in front of him with anticipation. Handsome uncle replied, "Wait until the sweetness is over. The preserves were eaten up by others. I'll just keep eating. It will always be sweet. Uncle, I still have to eat." Wei Yuan was amused by the little broken child on his back, smiled and fed a few more candied fruits. Su Pingji came over hard, hunched over and trying not to tremble in his voice. "The little girl is stubborn. Don't be like him," Nangong Chinro said with a smile, and Wei Gong talked to the child. "Go back." Su Pingji glanced at Xiao Doubting. I had to turn around and leave helplessly. At this time, Su Erlang said, "Dad, what are you afraid of?" The eldest brother is Yama. He was also deeply appreciated by the Duke of Wei. The shade of the trees will be fine. Su Ping Vi Sai. The heart said that it was still young. You won't understand Wei Yuan's terrible. People who lived through the Battle of Shanhaiguan. None of them would think that Wei Yuan was an amiable person. Time passes slowly. Wei Yuan was eating less and less in front of him. He glanced at Su Linin's small belly. "Raise your hand and press it on his head." Then he pressed all over the girl's body for a long time. Wei Yuan regretted it. Yang Yin frowned and asked what happened to her father-in-law. Wei Yuan shook his head and said, "This kid is strong-boned. The innate foundation is deep. It's just that the flexibility of the muscles and bones is too poor. Not suitable for martial arts training." Nangong Chinro sneered. No wonder she was so good at eating. This female doll is a rice bucket. Xiao Doubting originally hated Nangong Chinro, seeing that he actually opened his mouth to mock himself. She spat at him, unconsciously. Time goes to 40. Meditate in the middle of the square. Master Dur suddenly opened his eyes. The voice is loud, resounding throughout the audience. "Traitorous government, you know the Sumeru ring." The next moment, there was a foolish laughter of traitorous government from above the 9 heavens. It's just a little trick. Those present are dignitaries and dignitaries, or the people outside. One by one, they were in high spirits, emotional, because the main drama has begun. I saw that the hungry master took out a golden bowl from his sleeve. Throw gently. Then it slammed down. The golden bowl weighs more than 1,000 pounds. The slate was cracked, deeply embedded in the earth's surface. A pure golden light rose from the bowl. Spread out at high altitude, a high mountain is revealed. The winding stone steps lead to the end of the forest. There was an uproar in the square, in addition to cultivating as a deep martial artist. But all ordinary people who saw this scene, none of them can manage their expressions well. Nangong Chinro frowned at the righteous father. "What is a Sumeru ring?" Wei Yuan said lightly, "This is an allusion to Buddhism. Sumeru Tibetan ring. The ring is Sumeru. Legend has it that the Buddha had a mountain in his hands. It's called Mount Meru. That's his dojo. It doesn't matter where he goes. The dojo is there. It is said that there is a mountain hidden in Kimbori. Master Dewey commanded to meditate. You go into the mountains. In the second level, a handsome monk in orange underwear stood up, in full view, stepped into the golden wave. The next moment, the picture scroll unfolded high in the sky. There is one more young monk who climbs the mountain. He climbed the steps unhurriedly. Come to the mountainside. Sit cross-legged. Streams of golden light poured down from the sky. Converge on him. In an instant, his body was covered with a golden glow. The whole person is like gold poured out. The roof of a restaurant outside the venue. Qingshan, swordsman Xu Qian'an, standing side by side with the burly big bald head Hingyuan. Master Hingyuan scolded the golden light casting. This Sumeru world strengthens the contemplative Vajra body. With Su Ningyan's current strength, it is impossible to cut off another part of the sight. And secretly looked at the situation inside the square. Ziyu said, it turns out that there is really a Sumeru Messen in this world. Miriam Yang, who had her back to him, said with her hands in hand, Sumeru is also known as the Buddha country in the palm of your hand. But it's supposed to be a masterless world, hidden in a golden bowl. If there is the Buddhahood of the Lord, then the victory or defeat is in the whim of his master. That's fair. Chu Kaiwei stuffed a box of pastries into his arms. Coquettish said, Su Mingyan, let's go on the way up the mountain. It was a group of white-clad warlocks who encouraged them to go. Su Gongzi, although I don't know why the superintendent chose you, but the teacher must have his point. It must be triumphant. Su wife and took a deep breath. Can you talk about it triumphantly? Such a great opportunity. In front of the whole capital. I'll put this one on first. He looked at Miriam Yang defiantly. Senior brother Yang is after today. You'll understand. What is special is called a narrow victory in front of people. The voice landed. The door of the stargazing tower was slammed open from the inside, revealing a sunny and handsome figure. He carried the jar of wine in his hand. Walk out slowly with your head held high. It's just the moment you step out of the steps. The sound of muffled chanting accompanied the opportunity to spread throughout the audience. 15 or 20 years old. Qingshan fights swords and walks the rivers and lakes. Dafeng rises with the wind one day, soaring up to 90,000 miles. One body turned to fight 3,000 miles. A sword once served as 1,000,000 divisions. God doesn't give birth to me Su Mingyan. Kyushu is like a long night. Su Xingyan was so angry that he trembled. It was the pinnacle of his life. Created in frustration. Big brother is so shameless. In annoyance, Su Xingyan glanced at the woman beside him again. He looked into his eldest brother's eyes. It's a bit confusing. The watch looked at the figure stupidly. There seems to be no room for anything else in his eyes. Huiqing's eyes shone brightly. For the first time he felt, this man is so glorious. Suddenly, Su Qian threw the wine jar to the ground. The last fell in the sound of clattering shattering, laughed wildly, and said that the heroes of the world are out of my generation. As soon as I entered the rivers and lakes, the years urged. The grand plan hegemony is talking and laughing. It's better than getting drunk in life. Rampant laughter. He jumped into the golden wave. There was silence at this moment. This high-profile debut. The birth of this masterpiece. In an instant, it crushed the Buddha Gate in style, overlooking the Buddha Gate in an imposing manner. Also returned his faith to the people of the capital and Qian. Such a way of appearing before people. Somewhat too fashionable and innovative for them. Meantime, it also had a huge impact on their hearts, compared to just repeating a sentence that there is no self in the world. Senior brother Yang, who is such a person, seems to be very and. Chu Kaiwei pursed his lips. Bright eyes followed the figure, until he threw in the golden wave. Big-eyed beauty. I still can't get out of that scene. And Miriam Yang. The whole person spasmed. The mouth repeatedly muttered that it could be like this. In the eyes of hundreds of people in the capital. In the eyes of Dafeng dignitaries. Heroic drinking. Heroic poetry. Respond generously. Why just substitute for it? I felt my brain tremble. That's what I'm looking for. That's how I want it to feel. I didn't expect it to be easily done by him. No, it would have been my chance. It's my chance. Traitors. I'm a picture scroll projected in midair. At the foot of that majestic mountain, a man dressed in a lamplighter's hairpin costume appeared. Xu Qian'an, while summarizing the operation that was narrowly won in front of the people just now. While looking around, this wave of forced pretending, I give myself a score of 99. The difference of 1 point is a little embarrassing, but as long as I pretend not to be embarrassed, then he is a 100-point golden laid jade. Right now, the compassionate voice of the evil master sounded, echoing in the ears of the audience. This fight is about to climb the mountain. The top of the hill entered the temple. If you still don't want to take refuge in Buddhism, count me as a Buddhist book. This first level is the 8 bitter battles. 8 hardships in life. Birth, old age, sickness and death, love and separation, resentment and hatred, and can't ask for it. Silent red saint. Only those who are determined to be eligible for mountain climbing continue to be tested by the Dharma. Taiho has 3 chances to challenge. Xu Qian'an thinks differently, since for a moment doesn't perceive any breath of life around them. Do insects, birds, and beasts stunt? With doubts, he began to climb the mountain. Xu Qian'an stepped on the stone steps. The moment you enter the formation, the steps beneath your feet instantly turned into a quagmire. He fell into it without paying attention. Xu Qian'an subconsciously struggled. In exchange, it sinks faster. Just a treat, he swallowed him. There is no more life. I don't know how long it took. Maybe for a moment. Maybe a few hundred years. Xu Qian'an was faintly surprised. I heard the baby's cry. The cry tore through the black curtain. He saw the white walls, white sheets, crowd in white uniforms. A nurse holds a newborn baby. I'm wiping his body. The child grows up slowly. After experiencing the happiest childhood, he was forced to go to school. Day after day, year after year of schooling. Heavy schoolwork dominated his youth. Finally survived until graduation. He entered the unit, working day and night, to save enough for a down payment on a house. Head cantilever conical spinal strand. Finally, he made a down payment on a house. It's just those 30 years of mortgage. Also at this moment, the boy grew up to be an uncle, or forced or voluntary to take over the baton from parents. Became the person he hated the most when he was younger. Whether it's the education of the next generation, or verbally unintentionally didactic, all of them fit the former him. Xu Qian'an became more and more numb. Began a life of widowhood. Finally, he lay in a hospital bed. At this moment, Xu Qian'an actually had a kind of finality. A sense of relaxation that allows you to take a break. The end of a reincarnation. The second reincarnation begins. Xu Qian'an's thoughts of escaping into the empty door became heavier and heavier. Is this the 8 sufferings of life? Rites of passage. Love parting from resentment and hatred. I can't ask for a silent red saint. What is the meaning of such a life? That's not how my life is. It shouldn't be like this. In reincarnation again and again, Xu Qian'an had a voice in his heart that kept saying, "Rest, there is no point in such a life. Let it all go. You're free." Above the square, Wang Jinwen, the capital, suddenly sat up in shock. This array is used by the Buddhist monks to magic the Buddha's heart. The warrior fell into it. If you can't break the formation, it can lead to a broken mood. It's like a waste. If you pass through the battles safely, it means that the person has Buddha nature. Then you take the opportunity to cross him into the Buddha's gate. Crossing the arhats. Good means to hit me so that I will be annihilated. Aren't I afraid that I'll let out 1,000,000 elite soldiers? Master Water recites the Buddha's name. The tone was pleasant. Take refuge in Buddhism. Isn't it a creation? On the gossip platform, Emperor Yuan Jing, dressed in a Taoist robe, stood on the edge of the mansion. Look at the square. I've heard of this. What is the power of the 8 bitter arrays? The fairy was drinking a little wine. Explained to Emperor Yuanjing. It's not a question of how powerful he is. He's the kind of formation that's particularly abrasive. If a Jitong enters the town of 8 bitters, it's easy to get out. And the more people who have gone through the vicissitudes of life, the more difficult it is to break the formation. In the Buddha Gate, these 8 bitter towns are used by monks to sharpen their minds. Someone has been put to the test. The mood is becoming more and more complete. Others are in the midst of 8 sufferings. The Buddha's heart is broken. Emperor Yuanjing was suddenly awestruck. Buddhist monks are still like this. How much more so is he? His face sank instantly. If you lose this battle, an alliance that was originally on an equal footing, tilt will occur. In various pergolas on the square, the dignitaries suddenly change color. Originally, I was just watching the lively ladies and daughters. Also put away the playful heart. The state stopped talking and laughing, and the table suddenly became nervous. The corners of his eyes widened, and the peach blossom eyes were slightly raised. Xu Qian'an in the formation. The idea that tricked him into escaping into the void grew, rapidly eroding his will to survive. Suddenly, he instinctively shuddered. The idea of a firm self-belief instantly took hold. Xu Qian'an realized that something was wrong with his thoughts. It seems to have schizophrenia. It was at this time, 2 strands of consciousness collide in the body. He clutched his head in pain. Xu Qian'an's impotent rage. Force yourself to think about something else. For example, whisk Chana's snow-white ass. Suddenly, a shadow instantly occupied Xu Qian'an's mind. He came to his senses for the time being. But before he had time to cheer, an idea came into Xu Qian'an's mind. It was the sound of the book closing. There are 3 more ways to break this array. Xu Qian'an just opened his mouth to ask. The divine book immediately interrupted him. Don't respond. Don't think about anything that concerns me. Just listen to me. This array is used by Buddhist practitioners in their magical state of mind. Those who enter the battle will have 2 outcomes, and their mood will become more and more thorough. Or a broken mood, not a Buddhist. If you can survive the 8 hardships, it means having Buddha nature. Xu Qian'an was stunned. No wonder I had the idea of escaping into the void. Buddhism is trying to punish my heart. The thought of the monk came again. In addition to the above 2, there's another way. It is to break the formation with the power of all beings. Xu Qian'an obviously didn't know what the power of sentient beings was. But the monk of the sacred book stopped talking. He was about to ask subconsciously. It's just the instinctive vigilance of the survivors. He immediately stopped all thoughts. But that's it. Xu Qian'an's originally sober mind began to be confused again. If you fall into samsara again, it is impossible to regain your sanity on your own. All that awaits is the end of a broken heart. Think about the 8 sufferings of life. It takes the power of all beings to break it. But where did I get the power of sentient beings? This is obviously not the ability that a martial artist should have. Xu Qian'an examined all his means. Suddenly, an inconspicuous picture came to mind. Yang Chu Yuanji taught me Yang Mute. Use your emotions as your strength. Melt into the sword. Swing out. I'm in a really bad mood right now. But it wasn't enough to split the 8 bitter arrays. But think differently. Why do I have to use my emotions? Why not try to borrow someone else's emotions? Use the emotions of others to raise advice. The thought just came to mind. It's out of control. He closed his eyes, borrowing the secret technique taught by Chu Yuanji to sense emotions. He actually sensed the emotions of the outside world. That was the emotion of the onlookers in the capital. These oceans of emotions are dominated by tension and anger. Xu Qian'an was immersed in a sea of emotions, absorbing the emotions of anger. Gradually, a fierce anger was boundless, rising from the bottom of his heart. He unconsciously pressed the scabbard. It's like pulling out a knife. Yunlu Academy in Qingyun Mountain. Yashing's sculpture suddenly shook. A wave of majestic air rushed into the sky. A red wooden box in front of the statue of Yashing. A tremor followed. I don't know what is sealed inside. It seems to be about to break through the river. This is followed by 3 flashes of cyan light. Li Mubai and 3 Confucians rushed to check the situation. What's going on? Why did the Yashing sculpture move again? Dean Zhao Shou said leisurely. Someone has touched the power of all beings. He was revived. The 3 great Confucians looked at Zhao Shou like crazy people. At the same time, I am skeptical. Didn't you have a good rest last night? So much so that now there are auditory hallucinations. Zhao Shou ignored them, bowed down, and asked the seniors to be quiet. The 3 great Confucian parties woke up like a dream. One after another, please the seniors. The quiet voice fell. The mahogany box battle has weakened. Slowly calmed down, as if nothing had happened. This side of the square. Someone shouted hoarsely that he was going to draw his sword. Princess Huiqing was stunned, was a little puzzled by Xu Qian's actions. It's not just him. Anyone who knows anything about the town of 8 Bitters. I can't understand Xu Qian's intentions, because the town of 8 Bitters is not an enemy. What's the use of drawing a knife? Do you cut yourself? Above the tall buildings, Emperor Yuan Jingchen said, "Traitor, this is the person you're going to choose." That's what he did, jumping over the wall with the dog to discuss the supervision of the government. There was disappointment in his eyes that was hard to hide. Sigh. When he said that, His Majesty didn't feel anything. In the scroll, Xu Qian constantly absorbs the emotional power of the outside world. But that's all. It's not enough. The appearance of the picture scroll suddenly pulled out the knife loudly. "Draw your sword," he just finished shouting. Someone in the outer crowd also shouted. "Why don't you pull out your sword? Draw your sword quickly and hopefully." At the end of the term, the doctor's voice drew the knife and resounded in the sky. More and more people are agreeing. The shouts grew louder and louder. In the end, the sound of drawing the knife was like a tide. Together. So Xu Qian in the picture scroll moved. His eyes became sharp. Then the gun was sent. Peaceful Buddha in the mirror. Suddenly, a blinding light rushed up. It's like the morning sun breaking through the darkness. It's like a light that splits through chaos. This light is not condensed by Xu Qian's power. It is the power of tens of thousands of people in the capital at the moment. The power of unity. Click. The stone tablet with the words 8 sufferings was full of cracks. Then there was a thud and it shattered. Boom! The whole Buddha mountain shook at this moment. It looked like it was going to collapse. This knife is the town of 8 Bitters. The power of the 8 bitter towns comes from this Buddha realm. Hence the slash. It is also the power of this Buddha mirror. There was another click. This crunch is not from Foshan. It's the outside world. Master Dewey was stunned. Looking down, I saw that the golden wave had cracked a crack. The watch stood up wow, while screaming, while pointing at Jean Bo and stomping his feet. The golden wave cracked. The girls' screams echoed. The people on the periphery and the people in the rivers and lakes couldn't see Jean Bo. We're not seeing clearly. For a while, I was very anxious, desperate to ask for a certificate. Is it really cracked? Is the golden wave really cracked? I can't see it clearly. The dignitaries sitting in the beam shed looked at it intently. I saw a crack on the surface of Jean Bo. Subconsciously exclaimed, "It's really cracked. Kim Bo really cracked." Accompanied by this sound, a frenzied cheer rang out. Wave after wave. Isn't the stinky bald assy very strong? I really thought I was generous. Let's go back to the western regions. The capital is not a place where you can show off your might. The roof of the Care building overlooks the people. A smile appeared on the face of the emperor of Yuanjing, who was boiling with joy. Snorted lightly. Said not bad. Wang Jinwen, the capital of the Liang Shed, said in a low voice. Wei Yuan has another tiger general. This side of the Watchman area. Wei Yuan exhaled softly. Said lightly, "This knife is decent. It's okay, but it's your words. Can break the formation with one sword." The hearts bowed their heads in shame. On the dance floor, Yang Yin couldn't help but ask how he did it. Wei Yuan still had an indifferent tone in his hands. Wait for him to come out and ask for himself. This side of the family area. The old aunt looked at the figure with beautiful eyes. Muttered, "Not bad." On the roof of the restaurant, Heng Yuan spied an incredible knife. How exactly did Lord Su do it? Chu Yuanji looked sluggish, muttering in the mouth, "It's like a madman. How is this possible? How is this possible?" Heng Yuan was stunned. The knife that Lord Su just slashed out. What a strong impact it had on him. At this time, the voice of Master Do rang out. Word by word, it reaches people's ears clearly. 8-Bitter Town is just the first level. The second level is called the Poor Monk Pass in King Kong Town. After this, Yama sure unleashed a sword. Chi deficiency and exhaustion. But there is still room to pass the second level. Hearing this, everyone immediately raised their heads and looked at the scroll. Xu Qian'an sat on the stone steps, gasping for breath. His face turned pale. Even ordinary people who don't know how to practice can also see how bad Xu Qian'an's state is. This makes them realize it's too early to rejoice. This matter has only passed a hurdle. It is located at the foot of the mountain. It's still far from the top of the mountain. Xu Qian'an's state was like a bucket of cold water, poured out on the hearts of the people. Let the high atmosphere have subsided. Let the cheers fade away. At this moment, both the people of the capital, it's still an outsider, and the rolling princes in the court. He also recalled the body of Vajra, who was meditated. Fear of domination. The little monk on the mountainside. It's the one who did a half-tour at Nanjing Haoxia Terrace. It is said that the Vajra of Buddhism is undefeated. Undefeated indeed. In 5 days, many heroes and heroes came to the stage to challenge. No one can break his spirit. At this time, Miss Wang looked at the father of the capital. What do you think? Wang Shoufu said lightly, see more and say less. In his heart, he decided that Xu Qian'an's fighting method was difficult to win. I'm already thinking about the next one, but there was a slap in the face just now. It is impossible for the royal capital to draw conclusions. Because of the dignified capital, you can't fall twice in the same place. Miss Wang smiled. Speaking of which, I have an idea. He looked at Master Gao Xingdao, the master. The town of 8 Bitters is a Buddhist monk. The magic of the Buddha's mind is used. It has nothing to do with combat power, even if it's a high-grade martial artist. It's also difficult to break the formation easily. It can be used to cross the road of Erhan. Instead of letting high-grade martial artists enter the battle, it's better to find a wise son. Miss Wang smiled and said with a smile that the hungry master said just now. Dafeng has 3 chances. Kun nodded to the monks in the field. There is no denial. Miss Wang put away her smile. Shin said now. The 8 bitter formations have been broken. Even if Xu Qian'an can't pass through King Kong Town, the imperial court sent a high-grade martial artist to break the formation. The Vajra statue on the mountainside may be in the way. Master Du, he was stunned. Then he frowned and fell silent. Everyone's eyes lit up. There was a feeling of enlightenment. All kinds of thoughts go up and down. It turns out that this is also a way to break the game. If you want to talk about the words of the warriors, our Jinbei king, he is the first person who deserves to be worshipped. Wouldn't it be a slash for him? The golden body of the Buddha, the eldest princess of many Ji and demons. His Highness heard this. Finally, a sweet smile was revealed, because he saw the hope of Daebong's victory. Miss Wang was out of the limelight. Naturally, it attracted the attention of the arrogant little brother. Immediately fascinated by the beautiful cheeks, Miss Wang seemed to feel something. Glancing back at the area where the watchman was, happened to be opposite Xu Qian'an's eyes. I didn't resist in my heart. The little brother's face was hot. He couldn't tell what it was like. I can only remain silent. Embarrassed and embarrassed, he looked away. The little brother retracted his gaze in embarrassment. But the next moment, I remembered something. If I'm not mistaken, he seems to be the daughter of the Wang Shofu family. Come to think of it, a hint of disgust appeared on Xu Qian'an's face. He had a bad impression of the Wang family, because the royal party and the Wei party are positive enemies. The royal party persecuted the eldest brother several times. He kept it all in his heart. At this time, the old aunt opened her mouth and commented, "King of Jinbei. He is known as the most talented dancer in Dabong's 200 years. It's a pity that he is not in the capital. Otherwise, it would not be the turn of this group of bald asses to be arrogant." Xu Qian'an glanced at him with some surprise. This woman knows a lot. This insight is not comparable to that of ordinary women. I don't know. Where did the eldest brother know such a married woman? Suddenly, everyone's eyes returned to Foshan again, because Xu Qian rested for a while. I'm going to set off and continue to climb the stairs. The audience then came to their senses. It turned out that he didn't want to give up at all. Xu Qian did not encounter any more checkpoints along the way. Came directly to the meditation monk. At this time, the meditation is like pouring gold. A faint golden light emanated. Xu Qian stopped, asked at the bottom of the steps if I could take a break. The meditative little monk sat cross-legged. The quiet Tari benefactor despite pranayama. Xu Qian didn't wait for him to finish. He sat down on his own. At the same time, he gossiped about whether the master had been a monk since he was a child. Monk Jing nodded in affirmation. Xu Qian asked the master again whether he practiced Zen or martial arts. Meditation answers, Zen and martial arts. Xu Qian secretly thought that there was also such an operation as Zen and martial arts double cultivation. This little monk's talent is a bit amazing. Come to think of it, he continued, I have heard that Buddhism pays attention to entering the WTO first. The master of another accident has been a monk since childhood. You don't even have a home. What kind of home is out again? The meditation monk heard that Xu Qian wanted to change the Dharma with himself. Said the monk without fear. It refers to the elimination of troubles. Escape into the empty door. The donor doesn't have to chew on the words. Poor monks have practiced Buddhism since childhood. Walk the Western regions. Taste the sufferings of the world. I also tasted the 8 hardships of life. Xu Qian complained in his heart. Bullshit tastes the 8 bitters of life. You even have a mortgage. People who have never experienced car loans and sky-high bride prices. In front of Lao Tzu, he said that he had tasted the 8 hardships of life. The appearance of the picture scroll was very puzzled, and asked the dog slave, "How'd I talk to that stinky monk?" The eldest princess explained the blow just now. It has exhausted his strength. Xu Qian wanted to debate with the monk, try to take down the opponent with eloquence. Xu Qian in the picture scroll slowly stood up. He continued to ask what the master thought of the woman. The monk of meditation succinctly commented on the bone scraper. Xu Qian looked at him with a smile, and it was too early to say this. The master had never touched a woman at all. How do you know that women are not the most wonderful things in the world? Meditation is unmoved. It is true that the poor monk has never experienced female sex. However, the woman is as fierce as a tiger. This is something that has been passed down from generation to generation. Don't be forceful about the donor. Xu Qian stared at him. That official had a few things he wanted to ask the master. Have you ever supported your parents? Have you ever worked hard to run a home? Have you ever planted a field with a hoe? Jingxi opened his mouth to say pitiful. Not a word can come out. Xu Qian continued. Buddhism is not production. Chanting sutras and chanting Buddha all day long. It also needs pilgrims to raise. The officer asked you, what sutra are you reciting? What kind of Buddha is being recited? You walk through the world as a bystander. It can be regarded as understanding the suffering of sentient beings. 8 hardships in life. Meditation has only experienced life. The rest are none. You're just a fake monk. Jingxi was shocked, apparently shocked by these words. He pondered for a long time. Then he gritted his teeth and replied that the Buddha looked at everything in the world. Naturally, we understand the suffering of the world. Xu Qian'an nodded. With a clatter of gunfire, the black gold knife was drawn, and then on the palm of your own hand, cut a bloody wound directly. He lit up his wound and pointed it at master meditation. Does it hurt me? Meditate with your hands folded. Close your eyes and don't look. Chun Xingdao's blade deepened. There is no reason why it doesn't hurt. Xu Qian'an was asking, do you know how much pain I have? Jingxi's eyes widened suddenly. How much it hurts, he was silent. He has the Vajra amulet. The blade cannot do harm. He really couldn't answer. Xu Qian'an disdains the Tao master and still doesn't understand. This is what you call an officer. All you know is that I hurt, but I don't know how much pain I have. You only know the sufferings of the world, but I definitely don't know how bitter it is. You can't even understand the suffering of the common people. And how about purifying sentient beings? Isn't it a joke? Meditate, close your eyes, put your hands together. The mouth recited the Buddha's name repeatedly, in order to suppress the inner turmoil. Xu Qian'an continued, let me tell you a story. One year there was a great drought in the world. The people had no rice to eat. Countless people starved to death in this way. There was a retroborn son who heard about it. He said something in surprise. The master knew what he was saying. Jingxi asked what he said. Xu Qian'an stared at the little monk who meditated. A mocking smile. Word for word, why not eat mincemeat? The meditation monk was like being struck by lightning. The pupils gradually dilate. The face is stiff and sluggish. The crowd outside applauded loudly and said it well. The little monk was speechless. At this moment, the morale of the capital was greatly boosted. The Tsundere little brother was also stunned. The monk made the eldest brother's theory. The bombing was unstable. If you cancel King Kong undefeated, Buddhism in the western regions is about to lose. At this time, Xu Qian'an threw the black gold long knife in front of the meditation monk. Master of Shindao, if you think what the officer said is wrong, if you think you can really experience the suffering of the people, why not give it a try? Take away King Kong and be undefeated. Make a slash in your arm. You will be able to comprehend the pain of your own officials. Comprehend the true Dharma. Instead of why not eat mincemeat. Jingxi shook his head repeatedly. It's like convincing yourself not to try. No, no, no. Collect King Kong undefeated. I lost. Xu Qian'an followed the good path. The four major monks are empty. The master is so persistent. The outcome has already been lost. Lost a fight, but the master saw a wider sky. I experienced the true Dharma. Which is more important? The master decides for himself. The expression of the meditative monk gradually became complicated. He showed a tangled and struggling look. He slowly stretched out his hand, gripping the black gold long knife. The four major monks are empty. Don't be obsessed with winning or losing. Why not eat mincemeat? Why not eat mincemeat? The corners of Xu Qian'an's mouth twitched. You're in control. But it's just now. A voice echoed in the sky. It rings in everyone's ears. Meditate on your face. A handsome young monk. Have a rude awakening. He retracted his hand, as if he had been electrocuted. The black and gold spear fell to the ground with a thud. Gradually, the eyes of meditation returned to their clarity. Wang Shofu was furious. Smashed the glass. Bastard hungry. Can't the Arhat Buddha Gate lose? The officials behind him also blew up at the same time. Shamanis bite us. Dishes or practice more. If you can't afford to lose, don't play. Dignified Buddhism. It's so shameless. Monk Jincheng said lightly. Traitorous governments can secretly help each other. Why can't I be a Buddha? Wang Shofu was about to be blown up. Sling the bull. You say that the traitorous government came to the rescue. The traitorous government came to his aid. You have proof. Master Do Evil turned a deaf ear to the invectives of the heavens, glanced at Jingchen, said lightly, "Why don't you think about it?" Jingchen bowed his head. "Put your hands together." I recited a Buddha name, the sin of the disciples. In the picture scroll, Yasuji is stubborn. Shamelessly said that if the donor wants to pass the second level, I must slay my King Kong undefeated. Xu Qian'an was annoyed. The special big fighting method is the literary fight. There are also martial arts. It's all up to your ability. You're forcibly intervening this time. It's too much. He immediately stopped talking. Concentrate on it. Converged all the opportunities. A quarter of an hour later, Xu Qian'an picked up the black gold long knife. Retract the scabbard. He held down the hilt of the knife. Lang said that I only made one knife. This knife passed. Life and death are self-defeating. Jingxi didn't answer. Look at what it looks like. It seems that he has no face to answer again. With Qian precipitated all emotions. The breath in the body collapsed inward. The dantian is like a black hole. This is an indispensable accumulation process for heaven and earth. He closed his eyes. The mental power collapsed and retracted synchronously. It is connected to a huge qi and blood force in the body. It was the blood of the divine book that was closed. On the way back to Beijing from Yunzhou, Xu Qian'an absorbed this drop of essence blood, resurrected from the dead with the blood of an immortal warrior. But part of the power was still precipitated in him. Xu Qian'an was quiet when he saw Du Luoan. Thinking into the array, immediately realized, I can't get around this King Kong no matter what. And with the blessing of the secret realm of Buddhism, King Kong is undefeated. With the power of Xu Qian'an, it is impossible to unfold in any case. At that time, he was hiding in Si Tianjian, communicated with a monk of the sacred book. The advice given by the monk is to mobilize the essence and blood in the body. Will this remnant, the indigestible power, is vented out. This power does not reveal the existence of the divine book monk. In order to make Xu Qian'an, absorbs the immortal essence from the blood. The monk of the divine book has long since worn out his attributes. He is now essentially just the essence of martial arts. The power that had settled in his body revived him, melted into Xu Qian'an's limb plate. It also turned into a pure opportunity. Someone outside the stadium suddenly shouted in surprise. What's going on? Am I dazzled? How it feels like the world is trembling. Beat the watchman here. Wei Yuan got up slowly. Leisurely Dafeng rises with the wind one day, soaring up to 90,000 miles. The golden gongs looked at his back. A look of horror rose in my heart. Is this also expected by you? Wei Gongxiang snorted. The sound of drawing the sword resounded like thunder. There is no such resolute sword in the world, as if to cut everything off, rather for the jade crushed. Quiet like congratulations. With a bang, the underwear on his upper body was suddenly shattered by him, and the golden light around him is once again thicker. The same is true for this. A knife throw. The moment of contact, there was a clang. It was as if the heavens and the earth were going to be cut off. The table stood up suddenly. His eyes were full of shyness. Her Royal Highness, the eldest princess, also opened her mouth wide. I kept asking if I could bear it. Didn't cut it. Xu Qian'an's colleagues and superiors were stunned. They knew that Xu Qian'an was very fierce. But I didn't know it was so fierce. Obviously, I just finished that knife not long ago. On the field, Xu Qian'an stood proudly. The golden body was clearly shattered, seeing the layers of golden light being blown away as if in every way. It was the incomparable sword intent that drove away the golden light. This statue of King Kong, who has not been worshipped for half a decade outside the southern city. The golden body that was carried by the people of the city for 5 days. Finally defeated. Jing Xi's face turned pale, unable to maintain a meditative posture anymore. Crashed to the ground. It can be seen that the knife marks on his chest and abdomen have penetrated into the bones. It's already a broken organ. Xu Qian'an said lightly, I said, I'm only going to make one cut. At this moment, tens of thousands of people in the capital carnival. Someone screamed. Someone cheered. Some even burst into tears. Swept away the grievances of many days. The old emperor, who stood on the top of the carrying building. A heartfelt smile was revealed. Prove that you are sure. Good, good. Xu Qian'an is also very good. The cultivation of the imperial court is not in vain. At this moment, the Wang Shofu no longer has the slightest calmness of the past. Muttered in a low voice, since ancient times, heroes have come out of youth. And the table. At this moment, I heard the sound of my own rib-like heartbeat. It is more intense than it has been in more than 20 years. Princess Huaiqing not far from him. The situation at this moment is strangely the same as it seems. Ling Yu's sister, who will only feel sorry for her brother. Look at the big brother with infinite scenery. It's all a little bit lost to my aunt. Opened his mouth wide in surprise. Master, after this fight, the threshold of our house will be broken by the matchmaker. But Su Pingji did not respond to him. Instead, clench your fists. Old tears have long been rampant. The children have grown up. If the eldest brother has a fist, I'll be glad too. Xu Qian'an quietly made up his mind. Big brother is getting stronger and stronger. He is brave and diligent in martial arts. I can't fall too far behind either. The old aunt thought to herself. This Xu Qian'an is really beyond my expectations. Even when King Huai was young, it's not as glamorous as he is. Xu Qian'an put the knife into the sheath. Continue the climb. Shuttle through the mist-shrouded mountains and forests. Walked for a quarter of an hour. The front suddenly opened up. There's a huge Bodhi tree. An old monk sits under the tree. Xu Qian'an asked the master with a smile. Let's compare this level to something. The old monk recites the Buddha's name. The donor is not quiet. Xu Qian'an complained in his heart. As soon as he opened his mouth, he was an old Zen master. He asked rhetorically why he was quiet. The old monk replied that there is a law when the mind is quiet. There are laws in Buddhists. If there is a Buddha, you can transcend the sea of suffering. Xu Qian'an asked again why he wanted to transcend the sea of suffering. The old monk also asked why he didn't detach. Xu Qian'an raised the bar. Why should he be detached? The old monk replied leisurely, why not detached? Everyone outside the venue was stunned. What are they talking about? I don't understand the Zen machine. Xu Qian'an continued, Master. Let's talk about people. How to fight. Don't talk to me about these things that you don't have. The old monk folded his hands. Placid. Was not annoyed by Xu Qian'an's words. The donor is fascinated. Why fight? Xu Qian'an frowned. It is clearly the fighting method proposed by your Buddhism. The master is so vexatious. I'm not afraid of losing the face of Buddhism. The old monk's face was peaceful and calm. Slowly, the donor set his family on the mountainside. The four are empty. It is the four great emptiness. What is the face? Xu Qian'an felt that it was tricky. Even more terrible than the bar spirit is that he doesn't speak human words. Endurance character. Okay, how the master intends to test me. The old monk smiled and said that life is practice. The donor enters this secret realm of Buddhism. It is also a kind of practice. Xu Qian'an clasped his hands together. Recite the Buddha's name. How to repair? Please ask the master for guidance. Don't look over, old monk. The practice of the light path depends on the individual. Why ask the poor monks? Xu Qian'an's face turned green. I'm really convinced. This stinky monk, don't speak human words. It's okay. Lao Tzu is not accompanied. Xu Qi's heart suddenly rose a nameless fire. Leave the old monk and go up. But suddenly a barrier appeared. Blocked his way. Xu Qian'an really wanted to jump up and scold his mother. If it weren't for the fact that everyone in the capital was watching now. You have to keep your image. Since I can't go. Xu Qian'an sneered. Echo pressed the hilt. I do have a thought. The FA does not know that the 4 major ones are empty. Master, can you lend me a knife? The old monk looked calm and authentic. Ba. Try it over there. Poor monk. It is a wisp of obsession exhibited by Wannin Bodhisattva before his enlightenment. The voice fell. Xu Qian's heart. It's like being hit hard by a giant hammer. Needon's voice lingered in his ears. For a long time. Wannin Bodhisattva. The obsession exhibited before the enlightenment of the Bodhisattva. To say the least, it is also a third product. Xu Qian'an slid and knelt in front of the old monk with a sprint. Asked the master with a face. Where did we just go? The old monk replied honestly. The donor asked the poor monk to take a knife. Xu Qian'an coughed dryly. Detail pretended to criticize angrily. Could it be that Buddhism only fights and kills? Could it be that Buddhism Pudu lives all by fighting, killing, and killing? Master, let's talk about a penny. Outside the court, Nangong Chinro snorted coldly. He knows the times. If this level is broken by brute force, I'm afraid I'm going to lose. At this time in the royal pergola, the girl in the fiery red palace dress shouted at the bald donkeys. What is this level for? Duarhut was reluctant to deal with it. But it was a certain princess who was asking questions. Out of etiquette, the third level is explained that there is no content. As soon as the master's words came out, the dignitaries present were all stunned. The old aunt he asked untitled. Does that mean that no matter how Xu Qian'an responds, Buddhists cannot respond or disagree? Trap him in a secret realm until he concedes defeat. A word wakes up the dreamer. Biao snorted coldly. Isn't this a scoundrel? Since you want to fight, then they set up a battle and fight. You Buddhists just say, what is this? The master of evil clasped his hands together. Recite the Buddha's name. This is a leisurely way, and the untitled is also a question. Life is unpredictable. There are questions waiting for you all the time. That's when it happened. The sound of angry congratulations rang out. Shameless. A handsome scholar walked down the beam shed with relief. Come to the square. Looked at the monks coldly. Laughing, no wonder you monks are bald. It turned out that he hid the hair on his head and his heart. The surface scenery is gloomy, but the heart hides filth and filth. Shameful Jincheng monk frowned. This benefactor. Su Erlang squirted as soon as he opened his mouth. Who are your benefactors? A copper plate will not be given to you. When you meet people, you will be ashamed of the benefactor. The monk of Jincheng was choked a lot. I can't talk anymore. Jiro continued to increase his horsepower. What hello? A master of the Dharma monks. Are you also the obsession that the Buddha exhibited before he became a monk? The forbidden minister was furious. The donor is a reader. Opening and closing your mouth will only swear. This is the scholar of Daebong. Xu Qian'an snorted coldly. Disdainful, I never scold. Because I'm not scolding people. How to drop is not convinced. Several eminent monks came from afar. Come up with a fighting method. Dabong is the state of etiquette. Only one prostitute was sent to the fore. Has already given enough face. Which one is thicker than the walls of the capital? No wonder the Battle of Shanhaiguan was won 20 years ago. Indeed, it is mostly relied on. Allies of the barbarians of the north and the south. 10 years can't break the face of the masters. Monk Jin Chen suddenly got up. He glared angrily. The momentum is terrifying. Outrageous. Xu Qian'an is not afraid. Laughed and said a good master. Something. Monk Jinchen's expression suddenly froze. Hunger is the general trend. Lightly said Jinshen. You're distraught. Monk Jinchen's face turned pale. Put your hands together. The disciple looked at each other in a trembling voice. Su Xin Nian Sai. There is great satisfaction in the heart. After finishing the cool, he turned around and went back. One after another, eyes fell on Xu Qian'an. Surprise and appreciation. Those words are not good, though. But the scolding is good. The Buddhist monks who scolded were speechless. That's pretty cool. And they claim to be who they are. Those words are no matter what. You can't say it in front of a large audience. Xu Qian'an is equivalent to a new generation of nobles. Tool man. Miss Wang secretly praised her cleverness. He could see it. Xu Huyuan's scolding is just the surface. The real purpose is to disturb the Buddha mind of the Buddhist monks. Deliberately provoke them. Then deliver the fatal blow. It was both relieved and hit the monk hard. Under the linden tree, Xu Qian'an sat down with the old monk in disgust. He suddenly asked the master, "You say that you are a bodhisattva. What is the obsession of the exhibition?" The old monk replied, "To the supreme state of the Buddha." Xu Qian'an asked rhetorically, "What is the supreme state of the Buddha?" The old monk was silent for a long time. "I don't know. And Wanine thinks it's the Buddha. So he exhibited me. From then on, a glass Buddha heart. No more gritting. Bodhisattva was on the right path." Wanyin Xu Qian'an was silent. He didn't know anything about the Buddhas of this world. On the contrary, I have a little understanding of Buddhism in my previous life. But the Buddhism of the past life is the same as the Buddhism of this world. There is a huge difference. The most obvious point. The Buddhism of this world does not have the Buddha as he comes. There is only one Buddha. Xu Qian'an frowned and said, "Why? The highest state of a Buddha is the Buddha. Aren't other Buddhas Buddhas?" The old monk replied that Buddhism has the flavor of arhat fruit and bodhisattva fruity. Only the Buddha has the supreme fruit. Therefore, the Buddha is the supreme state of the Buddha. It is a unique existence. A Buddha is a Buddha. That's all I have to ask. Xu Qian'an said arhats and bodhisattvas. It doesn't have to be impossible to get the high ambition position. The old monk shook his head and said, "You are not a member of Buddhism. It is inevitable to not understand the fruit position. Xu Qian'an is a disciple. Put your hands together. Ask the Tao and ask the Master to solve your doubts." The old monk said leisurely, "The donor can know. Why are bodhisattvas bodhisattvas? Why are arhats arhats? The 4 grades of Buddhism are ascetics. Those who are in this realm. When you make a wish, wishing is closely related to the fruit position. Those who make great wishes will attain the bodhisattva status. Su Xiaohong's wishers get the taste of monk fruit. There are also 3 types of monk fruit flavors. They are sand thieves and non-returning. An arhat fruit, once condensed. No changes. Not progressive. Xu Qian'an was stunned. I didn't speak for a long time. This passage is simply too informative. It turns out that bodhisattvas and arhats are essentially unrelated. They are all promoted from the 4 rank ascetics. And so on, after the 4th product, there is the 2nd product or the 1st product. What about the 3-grade diamond mirror? This is not meant to be. The 3-pint diamond mirror belongs to another Buddhist system. Xu Qian's mind flashed. 8-rank warrior monks. 3 pins of King Kong. It's no wonder that Master Hingyuan is strong. But it's only an 8-rank warrior monk. Because his next product is the 3rd-grade diamond mirror. In addition, it is no wonder that the 2nd product is an arhat. One product is a bodhisattva, and the Buddha belongs to the superb. The reason for this fate, it is because once the fruit position is determined, it cannot be changed. So the Buddha gate of this world, not like in previous lives, there are a whole bunch of Buddhas and bodhisattvas. There is only one Buddha in this world. That's the Buddha. There is only one Buddha in the world. Isn't this Hinayana Buddhism? The corners of Xu Qian's mouth were slightly raised, and then it expanded, from smiling to laughing, from laughter to laughter. He leaned back with a smile, laughing wildly. Everyone outside the arena looked up blankly, looking at the Buddha gate. Xu Qian'an, who laughed wildly under the Bodhi tree. What was he laughing at? Crazy. Emperor Yuan Jing frowned. He glanced back at the correction. only to find that the prison was not drinking. Looked at Xu Qian'an with a serious face. Under the linden tree, the old monk asked everyone's doubts. What is the donor laughing at? Xu Qian'an's face was arrogant. Arrogantly, I laugh at the narrow-mindedness of Buddhism. I laughed at the hypocrisy of the Buddha. I thought the Dharma was profound. I think that all arhats and bodhisattvas are compassionate people. Only now do we know. It turned out that they were just some selfish people. The old monk raised his eyebrows. I was shocked. I really don't dare to believe that Xu Qian'an would say such a thing. Xu Qian'an said loudly, Master, don't you know the supreme realm of Buddhism? Then I'll tell you. It's just because your Buddhism is practicing Hinayana Buddhism. The monks outside the field were angry. I was curious. It's a strange word that has never been heard before. There is Hinayana Buddhism. Is there also Mahayana Buddhism? But he's a martial artist. What do you know about the Dharma? He is also good at asserting the classification of Mahayana and Hinayana. Xu Qian'an asked, Master, were you a high monk? The old monk replied to the western regions. Xu Qian'an asked the Buddhist monks why they practiced. The old monk recites the Buddha's name. That's the answer. It is said to be free from the sea of suffering. Xu Qian'an said in a deep voice, This is Hinayana Buddhism. Practice only for yourself. The same is true of the fruition position. Self-interest over others. The old monk was stunned. After pondering for a long time, he asked, and the donor said, This is Hinayana Buddhism. What is Mahayana Buddhism? Xu Qian'an smiled presumptuously. You are not a monk in the western regions. You are a high monk in Kyushu. He is a high monk in the world. Nor should the practice of being a monk be about getting rid of suffering. Rather, I want to wish the people of the world to be free from the sea of suffering. Why did Confucianism destroy Buddhism 400 years ago? It is not the Buddha who was destroyed. It's Buddhism. It's Hinayana Buddhism. Theravada Buddhism is ultimately confined to one school. Only Mahayana Buddhism can benefit sentient beings. So, what is Mahayana Buddhism? The old monk's breathing became rapid. His face was no longer desireless. It's not uneventful anymore. There was a noticeable fluctuation in his voice. What is Mahayana Buddhism? Xu Qian'an pointed to Tianji and asked, Why is there only one Buddha? The Buddhist monks outside the venue stared at Xu Qian'an, including the old monks. All the monks breathed in unison. Xu Qian'an took a deep breath. Slowly, all living beings in the world are Buddhas. There are countless Buddhas in the 3 worlds and 10 directions. This is Mahayana Buddhism. Why is there only one Buddha in the world? Xu Qian'an's words were like a thunderbolt from the blue. All living beings in the world are Buddhas. The monks were stunned. It's like petrification. I practice Hinayana Buddhism. It turns out that I am practicing Hinayana Buddhism. It turns out that all living beings can become Buddhas. Suddenly the monk, went berserk. He rushed into the crowd like crazy. He looked crazy. The Buddha's heart was broken. The arhat folded his hands. The sound of a morning bell sounded like a twilight drum. But troubled. The Buddha's heart is clear. The monk in his frenzy felt as if he had been hit with a stick. The body is stagnant. Then he fell to his knees with a thud. It's just that his face is still struggling. But it lives up to the madness just now. Every man. There is no concept of Mahayana and Hinayana Buddhism. Hence the sudden madness of the monks. Some scratch your head. Under the linden tree, the old monk kept muttering about Mahayana Buddhism. After a long time, he had an epiphany, with a smile of enlightenment. The whole body of Buddha luck flows. Thank you for your doubts. The poor monk has come to his senses. Su wife and was in a mixed mood. You really had an epiphany. I didn't expect me to have a few nonsense words. Just let the monk enlighten the day. The old monk continued. When Wanine was still a siping ascetic, there were doubts. Why can't he become a Buddha? This obsession has been hidden in my heart for countless years. until Xu Yuan is approaching. He was enlightened. There is only one Buddha in the world. That's the Buddha. So he cut out my bodhisattva status. The old monk stared at Xu Qian'an. It was like passing through him. I saw myself in the far west. I've been sitting in this secret place for years. I couldn't figure out how to become a Buddha. I can't figure out why I can't become a Buddha. Finally, he folded his hands. Say to yourself that I am a Buddha. The Buddha is who I am. Amipa. Thank you for the donor's order. And now he finally had an epiphany. Buddha has nothing to do with bareness. Su's wife and the sincere Taoist master gradually believed that it was not my work to sacrifice to the Buddha. His words have the effect of enlightening pointing, but can have an epiphany. It is this master of obsession who has accumulated a deep accumulation of his own, suddenly transparent, on the roof of the restaurant. Chu Yuanji asked Master Heng Yuan beside him, asked what they were talking about. Heng Yuan turned a deaf ear, just muttering, "See the flowers in the fog. Look at the flowers in the fog." Master Su made it clearer. Let's be clear. Chu Yuanjin was stunned. Su Ningyan's words had such a great impact on the people in Buddhism. The nobles weren't much better. What did they mean by that? If you move your mouth, you can pass the test. Wei Yuan looked at Xu Qian's figure. The look is incomparably complicated. Because of this sun, it's a little amazing. In the picture scroll, Xu Qian was overjoyed. Is this level broken? Let's go to the temple at the top of the mountain. He turned and was about to leave the place. Suddenly, a loud voice came, resounding throughout Foshan. What is Mahayana Buddhism? What is Hinayana Buddhism? Su Shizhu made it clear before leaving. Xu Qian frowned. I heard it being Du Arhat's voice. Why did he get involved so directly in the fighting method? Xu Qian snorted coldly. Excuse me, Master. What is a Buddha? Master Chun Shengdao. Before the Buddha, no one became a Buddha for 720,368 years. After the Buddha, no one became a Buddha in 3,491 years. There was a question in Master Doom's voice. A Buddha is a Buddha. Anyone can become a Buddha. Xu Qian pondered for a moment. It turns out that the Buddhism of this world has existed for 3,491 years. So why? There is no Mahayana school of thought yet. Or Kyushu world. Respect for profit. Realm-oriented. Who has a big fist? Who's the big guy? Therefore, the play of the mind is inhibited. And in my world, we are all mortal beings in the flesh. On the contrary, ideological differences are constantly colliding. The environment is different. The direction of development is different. Su's wife and Chunsheng said. So in the eyes of the disciples of Buddhism in the world, a Buddha is a Buddha, instead of a Buddha being a Buddha. In my opinion, this is simply ridiculous. This sentence is awkward. In addition to the Buddhist monks outside the field, no one understands anymore. Master Durer couldn't help but say, where is ridiculous? You have to make it clear. Su Weifan said disdainfully. Ridiculous, of course. Take Si Tianjian. Of the warlock. Testimony is a sorcerer. But a warlock is not a witness. This should be something to agree on. But in the eyes of your Buddhas, a Buddha is a Buddha. Isn't that ridiculous and strange? Shouldn't a Buddha represent a supreme fruition? It's not just about a single person. The Buddhist monks couldn't refute it for a while. Although this statement is really a big rebellion. The Buddha was the founder of Buddhism. Is the only Buddha. It is the existence that they are to worship. Such a high-ranking, immortal-level figure. Shouldn't it be the only Buddha? But Xu Qian's words do make sense. He continued, so I have a question for the master. What exactly is a Buddha? Is a way to gain power? Or a thought? Master Dewey's face was still serious. Seriously thought for a moment. Say both. Xu Qian's words are conclusive. So I said, this is where there is a difference between Mahayana and Hinayana Buddhism. On the gossip platform of the Stargazing Tower, Jian Zheng patted his forehead in annoyance. muttered to this turtle grandson. Dare to say anything. It's over, it's over. Emperor Yuan Jing looked back and asked firmly, What did you say? Qinshu smiled awkwardly. Your Majesty Xu Qian'an gave you a big gift. On the square, Wei Yuan slowly got up, hanging down the sleeves. Clench your hands into fists. He seemed to have something in mind. Wang Shoufu said in a low voice. Under the linden tree, Xu Qian said in a deep voice, Respect for standing. Great is the root. The goal of every Buddha practitioner is to attain attainment, or arhats, or bodhisattvas. To put it bluntly, it's a catastrophe. As for purifying sentient beings, and at the back of the line, Master Doom, I'm right. Master Doom was indifferently half rewarded. Put your hands together. This is the default. Xu Qian continued. Respect for standing. Great as the root. Take the Buddha as the Buddha. I call this Hinayana Buddhism. One monk retorted. If this is Hinayana Buddhism, what is Mahayana Buddhism? Is that what you mean, that all living beings are Buddhas? This is simply absurd. Xu Qian replied leisurely. You'll find it absurd. That's because you're practicing Hinayana Buddhism. In essence, it is still respected by grade. This is self-interest. But what if the heart is respected? Master Dewey clasped his hands together, recited the living Buddha. The heart of the trumpet is respected. Ask the benefactor for advice. Xu Qian talked eloquently. You think there is only one Buddha in the world. A Buddha is a Buddha, and it is impossible for a person to become a Buddha. It can only be cultivated into a bodhisattva or arhat fruit. But don't forget, was the Buddha born to be a Buddha? I think everybody is Buddha nature. It's just that I am fascinated by the filthy air of mortal dust. But after the practice, summoning the self, everyone can become a Buddha. Master Sword Sex Buddha. Boom! Suddenly, there was a thunderclap in the sky. If there is no Brahman, the sound sounds. Everyone was stunned to find that Master Doom's body was shining with golden light, echoing the vision of heaven and earth. In the Buddha gate, it was an epiphany. Sword Nature G Buddha. Master Water is immersed in a state of wonder. Be in ecstasy. A voice shouted in his heart. Why Buddha is a Buddha? Why can't I be a Buddha? Everyone can become a Buddha. A Buddha can really only be based on strength. A Buddha can really only be a Buddha. How narrow-minded this is. Only everyone can become a Buddha. Kyushu can truly shine with the light of Buddha. This is the real Dharma. The idea of Mahayana Buddhism emerged. New schools of thought emerged. The other monks did not have an epiphany, but with their own perceptions. I even felt suddenly enlightened. I got a glimpse of a different Dharma, a glimpse of a new realm of thought. Wei Yuan had a good epiphany word by word. The epiphany was good. Wang Shoufu laughed excitedly. Wonderful. Emperor Yuan Jing glanced at Xu Qian'an deeply. He came up with the idea of Mahayana Buddhism. This evil master didn't have an epiphany. Since the epiphany, he returned to the western regions one day. Mahayana Buddhism will be preached, and this will inevitably lead to a conflict of ideas about the great and small Dharma. At that time, the arguments will be light. Once there is a split, the more I thought about it, the more Emperor Yuan Jing could not remain calm. He laughed heartily with excitement. Because the supervisor is right. Xu Qian really gave him a big gift. The eternal monk listened to it with fascination, muttering about Mahayana Buddhism. Mahayana Buddhism, I can become a Buddha too. Warrior monks can also become Buddhas. Everyone in the world can become a Buddha. Produce sentient beings. Intellectual Buddha. The table looked at Huaiqing with wide eyes. He knew it was powerful. But I just don't understand. I can only ask the well-informed Huaiqing. What did the dog minion say? Huaiqing said, I don't know what he said, but I know what the consequences will be. The table blinked with peach blossom eyes. The consequences were revealed. The responsibility of the people. From now on, Buddhism is divided into Mahayana Buddhism and Hinayana Buddhism. Same event, under the influence of the second-rank Arhat Dui master. The monks of the western regions have come to their senses, fall into a wonderful realm. Of course, this is 108,000 miles away from Master Doom's epiphany. The Arhat did not disturb the comprehension of the disciples. Put your hands together. The sage said loudly. There is no elder or younger. Answer first. This is even a ceremony. Although Lord Xu is not a member of my Buddhist sect, but it has a big Buddha root. The poor monk suddenly opened. Thoughts sublimated. This just proves that everyone has Buddha nature. Summoning the self. The truth that everyone can become a Buddha. Thank you, Xu donor, for the on-demand. Let the poor monks understand Mahayana Buddhism. Xu sure should be my teacher. This third level is where you win. Front row location in the square. A man dressed as a scholar stammered. This Buddhist monk just now. It seems to be talking about Xu Shizhu. Be my teacher. All the time. Martial artists are all despised by the major systems. There is no way to break the ban. Vulgar warriors will only use violence to wreak havoc. Useful in addition to fighting. The rest of the time, or occasions have no effect. On the contrary, it is a factor of instability in Kyushu society. And now the dignified Buddhist monks, second-grade Arhat, actually said a martial artist. Be my teacher. This sentence was heard in the ears of the people around him. It's just an eyebrow raiser. I can't wait to look up to the sky and roar. Gradually, the warriors fell into madness. The entire Dafeng rivers and lakes should remember the name Xu Qian'an. He is a real dancer. Wait until I get back to my hometown. Just spread the word about it. This time I came to the capital. It's worth the trip. I have a lot of knowledge. In a corner, a woman who still has charm. He turned his head to look at his proud disciple. Rong Rong, I've inquired for the teacher. This Lord Xu is a frequent visitor to the teaching workshop division. Rong Rong looked back at the woman a little inexplicably. Master, what kind of beauty do you want to say? The woman said leisurely, our children don't pay attention to their reputations. Rong Rong, with your appearance, it's reluctant to be a wife to Lord Xu. But the identity is not enough. It's no problem to be a concubine. Rong Rong blushed with shame. He wanted to refuse, but that man was just too dazzling. Dazzling a woman who makes him look at himself as beautiful. I can't help but feel a little excited. Xu Qian'an continued to climb the stone steps. There were no more levels along the way. Walk all the way to the end of the steps. Step into the small square outside the hilltop temple. It is a single-family temple. It should be the last level in the temple. Du Rohan said. Enter the temple. If you still refuse to take refuge in Buddhism, then the Buddha gate loses. Xu Qian'an in an instant. In the mind, he recalled the 108 moves taught by the Oiran of the sect division. Stain your heart with this. The whole person is dyed in the colors exclusive to the royal family. Confirm that you have become an old pervert. He was satisfied with the sweat hand and pushed open the door of the temple. Enter the temple. See this scene? Du Arhat entered the temple with his hands folded. It's stone. I can do it too. There are 2 statues in the temple. The one on the left is gold. Gongfa is like a benefactor. The mystery of the Diamond Sutra is in the golden body. If you can see, you can cultivate the Buddha gate Vajra undefeated. Xu Qian's eyes were fiery all of a sudden. The Diamond Sutra is in the image. If you can cultivate this body protection skill, I am invincible in the 6th-rank martial arts. And with this miraculous skill, my last shortcomings will also be compensated. After a slash, exhausted, he threw the knife. Lie on the ground and tell the enemy to come up and move yourself. Xu Qian'an was excited. I felt a chill down my spine again. The visa is terrible. No wonder he insisted that I represent the 4 heavenly sword fighting technique. All this was expected by him. The warriors outside listened to Du Yi's words. His eyes lit up. Look up at the Buddha statue. I can't wait to stare my eyes out, glued to the Buddha statue. In fact, Duarhut is painting Xu Qian'an in order to pave the way for him to enter the Buddhist gate. It's not just about sucking money. It is also because Xu Qian'an is the founder of Mahayana Buddhism. Duarhut wants to be the founder of Mahayana Buddhism. And so it goes. I want to better promote the ideas of Mahayana Buddhism. I want to turn Hinayana into Mahayana. Xu Qian's existence is crucial. Xu Qian stared at the Buddha statue for a quarter of an hour. I didn't blink an eye. The Diamond Sutra is in the Buddha statue. What a mess. Obviously not. He laughed at himself in his heart. I am indeed a vulgar martial artist without Buddha roots. Suddenly, a warm current came through his abdomen. Xu Qian suddenly perked up. Bad food, almost forgot I had a plug-in. He took a deep breath. Cross-legged sit down. A stringent gas machine. Relax your mind. The warm current of the inner strand starts from the dantian. Walk through the middle dantian. Enter the upper dantian. The center of his eyebrows suddenly froze. It's like a plastic film being pulled apart. The center of his eyebrows. A little bit of gold is born. Then it spread rapidly. It was like an invisible handle outlined on him. A few breaths. Xu Qian was covered in brilliant golden light. It's like a golden body incense. See this scene? The faces of the courtiers in the palace instantly collapsed. How did he turn into a golden body? Xu Qian really converted to Buddhism. The table looked at Xu Qian excitedly. His mouth kept shaking. The old bald donkey said, "Only take refuge in Buddhism. In order to become undefeated." Could it be that Gon Nu is really going to be a monk? Princess Huiqing shook her head. I don't know. Stargazing upstairs. Emperor Yuan Jing's face was not very good looking. Look at the superintendent. Asked, is Xu Qian going to lose at this last step? Xu Qian in the picture scroll is golden. He opened his eyes suddenly. Look somewhere. Asked the master of evil. Did I pass the test? I realized that King Kong is undefeated, but still a layman. A voice fell. The entire capital was boiling. Buddhism, this is stealing chickens and rice. This Yama is a genius. In time, it may not be possible to surpass the king of Jinbei. Become the first warrior of Daebon. His eyes widened. My heart is sour. Wei Yuan smiled proudly. At the same time, doubts arose in my heart. It is not because of the strong friendship. It doesn't matter. As long as Xu Qian can be brave and diligent in martial arts. It's hard to be confused. Xu Xingyan said in a low voice. Daddy is after today. Maybe you're not a son of man. Second Uncle Xu, who was happy, turned his head and said in surprise. Why did Xu Xingyan laugh? Because you have cultivated such a martial arts genius as your eldest brother. In the future, all those who practice martial arts and give you a thumbs up. Second Uncle Xu heard this. It's a hearty laugh. Sweep away the gloom of the year that is not the son of man. On the top of the 9th floor, Heng Yuan was envious. Vajra miracle. Chu Yuanji patted the shoulder of the big bald head. The smile is steady. Go back to Suning and ask for King Kong to be undefeated. Your path as a warrior monk can go further. It is not impossible to be promoted to the 3rd rank of King Kong, the obsessive old monk and Xu Qian's seat. The people outside the conversation listened to it word for word. With the wisdom of Chu Yuanji and Heng Yuan, it is not difficult to guess. The next rank of the 8-rank warrior monk is the 3-rank Vajra. In a cheer and cheer, the old aunt said abruptly, don't be happy too early. There's also a statue of the Dharma. At this time, the hungry Arhut recites the Buddha's name. A slight smile spread throughout the audience. This level is called Shura's questioning. This is an allusion to my Buddhism. Legend has it that when the Buddha founded a sect in the western regions, the western regions are occupied by a group of barbarians known as Shura. The Shura are fierce and aggressive, like hare drinking blood, for the sake of turf. wantonly murder of Buddhist monks. After the Buddha knew, personally come to the Shura territory to meditate. 3 days and 3 nights. Fight and kill. Never fight back. The cruel Shura tribe immediately added swords and guns. I saw a knife go down. The skin is open and the flesh is open. Bloody, but there was a sonorous sound in the flesh. 2 knives down. The flesh lit up with a golden light. After $3,600, the Buddha has lost his flesh and blood. The golden statue appeared. The Shura tribe was chopping for 3 days and 3 nights. Lost in himself. Enlightenment. Let go of the murderous intent from now on. Take refuge in Buddhism. Meanwhile, the squinting Vajra statue in the temple. Suddenly, he opened his eyes. Sha Xiang suddenly opened his eyes. In an instant, the majesty of the Dharma was like a landslide, like a tsunami, wrapped in the power of Permo Ningyu. Engulfed Xu Qian'an. Xu Qian'an saw the boundless light of the Buddha. This Buddha light does not make people feel peaceful. On the contrary, it gives people a sense of domineering and rudeness. The next moment he pressed one hand on the hilt of the knife. Draw the black gold long knife in front of everyone's eyes. It's just that what he's going to do is not to put on a hair statue. Instead, the other hand pressed against the wig. It's about shaving yourself. It was at this time, Xu Qian'an woke up. You can't pick it up. I don't have hair. Took off this wig. My big braised egg. It was exposed in the eyes of thousands of people. At this time, Du Arhut. A smiling voice rang out. Listen only to the sound. Can experience his happy mood at the moment. Poor monks visit Dafeng. It's really the most correct decision I've ever made in my life. One move to enlighten Mahayana Buddhism. He also got a Buddha who was born with wisdom. Amitabha. God bless the Buddha. The crowd was furious. But there was no invective, because they were all looking at Xu Qian'an intently. They held their breath nervously, because anyone can see that Xu Qian'an is struggling. I'm fighting against Shura and asking the stars. The old ant thawed in pieces. The delicate little hands tightly stirred the hem of the skirt. Hold on. Care about the rooftops. Emperor Yuan Jing echoed violently. Eagerly treacherous. I won't allow him to escape through the empty door. Become a Buddhist disciple. Whatever it takes, you have to stop it. The traitor laughed. Your Majesty is the 95. It's just a silver luo. Don't care. Emperor Yuanjing said angrily. No, be generous. It's hard to come up with a genius. How can you let the Buddha gate cross? You have to stop him, even if you lose the heavenly opportunity. Pan Jian is shaking the way. Your Majesty is reassured. The firm old hand grasped the wine glass. Protruding green tendons. It seems to be accumulating. The wine in the glass is calm, reflecting the sun, moon, mountains, and rivers, reflecting the dawn of life. But then the superintendent suddenly stopped, stunned, looking into the distance. That was the direction of Yunlu Academy. His brow furrowed slightly. I secretly said in my heart, did anyone make a move? The table screamed excitedly, and the dog slave screamed. Resist me. At this point, Du Rohan frowned. The Tao takes refuge in Buddhism in order to get out of the sea of suffering. Immortality, to be able to temper others. There is obviously a big Buddha root. Why are you so obsessed? Inside a temple in the realm of Buddha. Xu Qian'an briefly gained his own will. He resisted joining Buddhism, resist the ideas that are instilled. But his resistance seems to have drawn the wrath of the Buddha statue. The fog in Foshan shook violently. A golden statue, standing up to the sky, condensed the sunny day. The statue slowly lowered its head and looked at the temple. Then he slowly stretched out a huge Buddha palm. Pressed down. In the temple, Xu Qian's shoulders sank suddenly. It's like a mountain has been crushed on your shoulders. The overwhelming pressure forced him to his knees. Xu Qian'an was nervous. Can't kneel. can't kneel. He had a hunch. There was no turning back from this kneeling. He'll become another version of himself. A Xu Qian'an who honors the Buddha and worships the Buddha. Outside the temple, the Buddha palm of the Xingtian statue pressed down again. Xu Qian's bones popped like beans. In particular, the vertebrae are faintly protruding. Flesh will be pierced at any moment. His head was buried even lower. I can't straighten it up. The only constant is that the knees are not bent. Xu Qian'an, who lowered his head, turned red. His eyes were bloodshot. The face is hideous. He opened his mouth. It's not strange to spit stubbornly, even if you want to believe in Buddhism. And I did it willingly. Believe that no one can tame me. The sub-sanctuary of Yunlu Academy. A mahogany box hanging above the head of the statue of Yasheng. Violent vibrations. This time the tremor was felt extremely strongly. The content seemed to be desperate to come out. Li Mubai's eyes widened. Unbelievable. Someone has mobilized the power of sentient beings again. Dean Zhao's show frowned. Bow your hand. Please be quiet. Unexpectedly, the vibration of the mahogany box became more and more violent. Seeing this, the three great Confucians immediately drummed up their righteousness. Joined forces with Dean Zhao's show to suppress the mahogany box. Bow your hand. Please be quiet. Bang! The mahogany box is blown apart. The temple of Ya was cleared. A burst of light burst out of the river. Crash through the roof of the temple. Burst into the air. The abbot beckoned out of the yamen. The gaze follows the clear light. He skimmed over the mountains. Disappear into the sky. That's the direction of the capital. On the square, Du Arhut folded his hands and folded Amitabha Buddha. I didn't expect Su Shizhu to be so obsessed. Presumably after taking refuge in Buddhism, the Buddha's heart is clearer. The table glared viciously at the Arhut. The dog minion stood. Princess Huiqing suddenly walked out of the beam shed. Shout not to kneel on the bald donkey. An old man in civilian clothes stood up in the beam shed. He shouted in a slightly trembling voice. Chivalrous handover. Voodoo bear liver and gallbladder movement. Hair stands in the pool. Life and death are the same. No 1,000 pounds. Someone who can write such words. Do not kneel Su Pingji, he downing Hiko. Stand up straight and do not kneel. Xiao doubting sitting in Wei Yuan's arms. Suddenly, he snorted and snorted at the top of his voice. Wei Yuan touched his skull. After saying the next sentence for him, he didn't kneel. Wang Shoufu stood up. Lang, said the great warrior. If you don't kneel, you can light the fuse. The onlookers were boiling. Everyone raised their fists, shouted and did not kneel. More and more people are shouting not to kneel. Xu Qian'an seemed to feel the power of sentient beings again. A stream of pure thought poured into his sea of food. The idea is complex and grandiose. Do not kneel in passing a voice to him. In a flash, Xu Qian's eyes burst out with unprecedented light, like an ascetic wandering in the dark. Finally saw the dawn. He's childish. Roared out the voices of thousands of people in the capital. I'm angry. Do not kneel for the same event. A clear light burst through the sky, with a rumbling sound of breaking the air. With unbeatable power, blatantly crashed into the Buddha realm. This light shines through the statue in the Buddha mirror. It seems to feel like a clear light that crashes into the secret realm. The moment of the confrontation. Clear light melts the phase. Then 90 degrees of gyration. Go straight to Xu Qian'an. Xu Qian'an raised his arm in a daze. The light fell into his hands. It was a quaint black carving knife. Xu Qian'an has never had the confidence at this moment. Shun said that all living beings can become Buddhas. Why does Lao Tzu kneel to you? He said that. Calmly stabbed out the carving knife. Click. The Buddha statue has a chapped eyebrow. Cracks spread all over the body in an instant. Then it fell apart. Meanwhile, the golden wave cracked. The cracks were immediately fried into chicken powder with a bang. The Buddha mirror then became disillusioned. Two figures fell out. They are unconscious meditations. And Xu Qian'an, who stood proudly with a carving knife in his hand. Xu Qian'an slowly swept the audience. Then I just felt my eyelids sink. He quickly reached out and pressed the wig above his head. Then he passed out, in full view. Fainting is nothing, but the wig can't fall off. This is his dignity. Care about the rooftops. The look of righteousness is gone. Fong is so calm. He looked at the carving knife in Xu Qian's hand. Muttered in his mouth, "Did you choose him too?" The top floor of the green building. Emperor Yuan Jing attached his hands behind. Look up to the sky and roar. It's not expensive. How many years? How many years has it been in the capital? There is no such good teenager. Junjia's watch erupted into a piercing scream. Excited stomping. One Huaiqing. The dog minion won. He's my man. It's my people. Huaiqing looked at Xu Qian'an, who was unconscious. There seems to be an obsession in Ying's broadcast. At this moment, Huaiqing recalled Xu Qian's various deeds. The tax and silver case is just beginning. Secretly designed to frame Zhou Li, the son of the household servant. Eliminate hidden dangers completely. Then he joined the watchmen. Knife slashed and imprisoned. He was ordered to investigate the funeral case. Completed the investigation of the Yunzhou case almost independently. Subsequently killed in battle in 400 rebels. Present period. There is also a first-hand heirloom family coming out every once in a while. Let Dafeng dance alone. And now to replace Si Tianjin and the Buddhist sect fighting method. 2 outs. Forcefully knocked back the confidence of the people in the capital. 1 discourse. The obsession of the old monk under the Bodhi tree was resolved. Let the dignified Arhat have an epiphany. Enlightenment of Mahayana Buddhism. Then came from the light of day. 1 blow to him. Fa Xiang destroys the Arhat magic weapon. Princess Huaiqing has never seen such a brilliant man. There has never been a boiling cheer from the people in the capital. And the blood boiling. Shouting the main Xu Qian'an. On the contrary, no one cared. Su Erlang walked over silently. Pick up the big brother. The little brother thought to himself. After all, I carried it all by myself. He carried Xu Qian'an on his back and walked in the direction of a group of workers. His eyes caught a glimpse of the carving knife that Xu Qian'an held tightly in his hand. What is this? Seems to be a carving knife. Where did the carving knife come from? Su Erlang was a little greedy. Wait a minute, no one notices. Let's sneak away from Big Brother. Du Arhut stood in place in despair. It turned out to be a monk and said in a deep voice, "The benefactor is a genius given to Buddhism by God. He is the founder of Mahayana Buddhism. Uncle Sure must bring him back to the western regions." Du Arhut looked at the 2 distant backs, moaning for a long time. I can only sigh. It's just a leisurely way. Maybe fate has not arrived. The monk was unwilling. Opened his mouth, but he seemed to think of something. In the end, he chose to remain silent. This side of the Hallam Temple. Hallam I is part of the cabinet, responsible for revising books, writing history, and drafting edicts. Served as an examiner for members of the royal family, etc. The 3 most noble positions in the court. They're the imperial history of the Metropolitan Inspectorate and the chronicle of the 6 divisions. And Hallam Temple. If it comes to status, Hallam Academy is at the top of the list. Because there is another name for Hanlin Temple. Chuxiang Cultivation Base. The successive capitals of Daebong were all from the Hanlin Temple. In other words, only the nobles of the Hanlin Academy can be included in the cabinet. Become a university. Even the official worships the capital. At this moment, in the palace of Emperor Yuanjing, the eunuch on duty was standing in the hall of the Hanlin Temple. Scold the nobles. The victory of this fight. Isn't it that your majesty uses people to be virtuous? Isn't it that the imperial court has cultivated Su Yinluo's merits? Look at what you guys wrote. All of them are from Serie A. You can't write history. The eunuch threw the book on the ground. Rewrite. The faces of the relatives and nobles present changed. Today's battle will surely go down in history, passed down to future generations. There is no doubt about it. But how to write it is very particular. All such a big thing for Yangtze. There must be a positive record in the history books. It symbolizes honor and brilliance. The person in power, that is, Emperor Yuan Jing, wanted to rub it. At this time, a young editor, Chun Qingdao, was selected by the supervisor. The fighting method is Xu Qian'an's contribution. What does this have to do with your majesty? We are the editors of the Hallam Academy. Not only to write history books for the imperial court, it is also to write history for future generations. The eunuch smiled coldly. A few can pay tribute to the gift of His Majesty Academician Hanlon. It is only a matter of time before he joins the cabinet. The sun and moon shine. Promising. If it makes His Majesty unhappy, assign them to the outside. TSK this great future. Not to mention the sun and the moon. Even the starlight is gone. His Majesty means that the length remains the same. I want to write about the fighting method and the process of His Majesty's selection of talents. As for Xu Qian'an's singing praises, he was young after all. There will be opportunities in the future. Do you understand? The voice just fell. The young Bian Xiu grabbed his eyebrows and smashed them, slammed into his face. The eunuch retreated again and again with a muffled voice. The old eunuch was furious. You dare to beat our family. Over there, Xiu pointed at the eunuch and scolded and beat you. This time, the Western region's delegation entered Beijing. First, King Kong sat on the thunder in the South City, and the master of the North City gave lectures. Later, there was a law to question the soldiers and the superintendent. Then Si Tianjin fought with Buddhism. Su Shikui turned the tide. Frustrate the Buddha's Weiqi. If it weren't for him, the court would lose face this time. Why can't you sing the praises of virtue? Why should we cut back on pen and ink? Teenage heroes. The official admired him in his heart. If you were a reader, and I took him as my teacher, other relatives and nobles heard about it. I also grabbed what I could grasp around me. Smash it over. Get out of here. Hanlon Courtyard is not a place where you gelding dog can go wild. Lin Baoguan. Here, a woman in a beautiful overalls came to the inner courtyard. Said in a gentle voice the national teacher today. Why didn't the mage fighter see you? Have you seen today's fight? Come into the room. Luo Yuheng, who was alluring in the city, sat cross-legged on the futon. Lightly, I'm not interested in any of this. The woman laughed and laughed. You're missing the show. Today's fighting method is exciting. It's more interesting than singing in the troupe. Let me tell you about it. He was chattering. Put the process of fighting. Tell Luo Yuheng about it vividly. Luo Yuheng frowned and asked. You say he broke the 8-strand array with one sword. Mu Nanji nodded yes. It's amazing. What's the matter? Luo Yuheng pondered for a moment. I think I'm helping him. He also mobilized the power of sentient beings for him. Mu Nanji sighed, although I still didn't understand. What's so great about Mahayana Buddhism? But it sounds so powerful. Luo Yuheng's beautiful eyes flashed with shock. Mahayana Buddhism. He has such understanding. Melanzi's eyes were shining. The chatter went on and on. None of this is a big deal. The best part is the 4th level. Luo Yuheng quipped. Lineage. Have you ever found one thing? You used to come to my view. Always yelling about boredom. Want to hang out. But now you're not bored. Not to mention, talk to me about it. A word or two will be pulled to Xu Qian'an. Mu Nanji was stunned. He stared at Luo Yuheng for a moment, converged on the lively temperament. She became a reserved and dignified lady again, with a faint tone of detachment. Calmly say, what do you mean? Luo Yuheng smiled and shook his head. Just to remind you, you have a husband. Your husband is the king of Huai. 3 products and 5 products. He guarded the border gates. Not in the capital. But how many of his henchmen and eyes and ears are in the capital? You know best. You don't have to have too much to do with that Xu Qian'an. Otherwise, it would hurt him. Mu Nanji's tone was proud, haha. How could I? With a disciple who goes in and out of the church division all day long. Is there any involvement in your burying me? Luo Yuheng is good on the other side of the road. Actually, you don't say it. I also know what's going on behind the scenes. It is nothing more than the Dharma phase being broken for no reason. Or the evidence is shot. Mu Nanji hurriedly said. No, it's a clear light falling from the sky. Broke the golden body law. Broken Buddha mirror. I was close. See it clearly. It was a carving knife. There seemed to be a thunderbolt in Luo Yuheng's ears. With a shake of his hand, warm tea spilled out. His beautiful face froze. The carving knife is not treachery. It is impossible for a traitorous government to dominate a family. Carving knife, Luo Yuheng said in a deep voice. Where's the carving knife? What happened next? You talk about it carefully. Mu Nanji asked strangely. What happened to you? Luo Yuheng leaned forward, grabbed his hand, eagerly frightened. You say quickly, Mu Nanji hurriedly said. It was the carving knife that broke the law phase. Luo Yuheng stared at him with burning eyes. The carving knife is to break the law and run away. Still stayed on the spot. Xu Qian'an. Did he touch the carving knife? Mu Nanji was extremely excited. Raise your right arm. Made a gesture of sliding forward. Yes, he slashed through the statue in the temple. Just like me. The voice fell. The beautiful national teacher was stunned. The eyes are glazed. Like a royal beauty. Beauty is beauty. But there is no agility. In the middle of the night, a small courtyard in the outer city, a ghostly light descended that ordinary people could not capture. Fall in the courtyard. In the room, a gray-haired old man woke up suddenly. Start with depth. Helpless Dao, junior sister. Even the young god is out of his body. So eager. It's something that matters. Luo Yuheng didn't talk nonsense. Asked bluntly. The Confucian carving knife appeared. Daoist Jin Lian hesitated slightly. Still nodding slightly. Luo Yuheng's eyes burned. Let me ask you who Xu Qian'an is. The Golden Lotus Daoist groaned. The answer was a little hesitant. He's just an ordinary person. Luo Yuheng sneered. An ordinary person can use a Confucian carving knife. The Golden Lotus Dao chief sighed. When I first met him, it could be seen that he is a person with great blessings. He gave him the fragment of the book. Borrow his fortune to evade Purple Lotus's tracking. I did an investigation into his identity afterwards. I think it's a little strange, whether it's Li Miaojin or Chu Yuanjin, or someone else. When I gave them the fragments of the handbook, pretty much all of them have already been born. Only Xu Qian'an is an alchemy mirror. The family background is even more mediocre. He Lai Fu Yuan. Ha Fu Yuan either does good deeds and accumulates virtue. Either the ancestors blessed. He doesn't take either. An incident that happened later. It made me realize that his situation was not right. Once, this kid revealed himself in the fragments of a handing book. He said that he picked up silver every day. I want to know why. Here. Luo Yuheng couldn't help it. This wasn't for Yuan. Daoist Jin Lian stared at him. The eyes are deep and bright. Word by word, yes. It's breath. It's quite a heavenly charm, although there is speculation. But it was confirmed by the Golden Lotus Dao chief. Luo Yuheng's pupils shrank slightly. Daoist Jin Lian thought for a moment. Another senior sister. I don't mind having a Taoist couple. Luo Yu snorted coldly. What do you mean? Seeing the female national teacher glaring, he smiled and said with luck, it is the martial arts Xu Qian'an who cultivates again. The achievements in the future will be extremely high. If you want to double cultivate with him, it doesn't happen overnight. You can double study first. Recultivate feelings. Rinzong preaches your lineage. One way or another, you will all bear offspring. To your character. After a double break with someone, you can also marry other people again. Luo Yuheng disdained the burden. guarantee the infinite longevity of the land immortals. Why do you need children? Jin Liandao smiled and said nothing. Although the land gods are free from the world, Shou and Tianqi. But accidents happen. Therefore, there is a need for offspring to pass on the mantle. However, although senior sister Renzong is in hand. But after all, it was a woman's cultivation. It's not Tianzong's way of forgetting love. Occasionally, there will be a little bit of a temperament. Golden Lotus Daoist smiled in a smiling tone. Let's get out of the way early. In this way, you may be better written in the history books. Luo Yuhing sneered. Since ancient times, history books will only talk about red faces and bad water. Bring calamity to the country and the people. As everyone knows, the crux of the problem lies in the man. Those spineless pins did not dare to anger the king, and put all the blame on the woman. It's ridiculous. Emperor Yuanjing's cultivation was for immortality. He wanted to be a human emperor for the 9th generation. Even if there is no sect, he still cultivates. What does it have to do with me? Wei Yuan, this dog thing, said that I bewitched the king. All these years, I often told Emperor Yuan Jing that the medicinal use of the pill was not very good. But he still has a great Dan. Also looking for a little Dan? Ignore my advice. Where do you begin to bewitch the king? Daoist Jin Lian first agreed with Luo Yuhing's words. Then he commented pertinently that what senior sister Dao said was reasonable. However, you, Renzong, want to use the emperor's aura to suppress the fireworks. Although it is a last resort, but it did provide assistance to Emperor Yuanjing's cultivation. Inevitably, you will be angered. Luo Yuhing looked at him fixedly for a few seconds. The heart says you and I Hashni. Come to think of it, he got up and took his leave. When he reached the threshold, he suddenly fell again. At the end of the 36th year of Yuanjing, Brother Zhongdao's remnant soul drifted into the capital. Don't think about monasticism. Possessed by cats all day long. Surround yourself with a pack of cats. Exhilaration. I want to add this to the rituals of the patriarchal era. After painting, Luo Yuhing turned into a ghostly light and fled. Jin Liandao is a senior sister who is in a hurry. Senior sister has something to discuss. It's a pity that Luo Yuhing doesn't plan to discuss with him at all. Leave a little starlight behind. Drifted away. Daoist Jin Lian muttered helplessly. What a stingy and vengeful woman. Su Fu sighed. Xu Qian'an left the room and passed through the inner hall. Su Lingyue said in surprise, Big Brother. You woke up. Xu Qian'an smiled and nodded. Indicates that the body is fine. After speaking, he asked Chu Kaiwei why Miss Kaiwei came. I was attracted by the wind in the jade tree. Come here. Chu Kaiwei hurriedly tucked down the pastry and replied. I'm speaking for the teacher. As he spoke, he beckoned to Xu Qian'an and said, Come here. He whispered to the teacher. You can ask your majesty for an iron ticket. It took Xu Qian'an a few seconds to react. What is an iron ticket? The official name is Single Book Iron Coupon, commonly known as the gold medal for avoiding death. What do I want that thing for? I'll exchange a few thousand taels of gold. Then he was added to the rank of knight. Isn't it more fragrant? And Su Lingyue on the side. See the intimate gesture of the two bowing their heads and talking. He puffed out his cheeks, beckoned in exchange for Su Lingyue. Motioned for him to go and play with Sister Kaiwei. Little doubting Wow, rushing towards Kaiwei with his little short legs. Hit him headbutt on his hips. Sister Kaiwei, we're here to play. Xu Qian'an saw this. I can only go to the front hall with Zhao Shou. He told Zhao Shou about it. Then observe his reaction. Dean and Governor. Let me ask your majesty for an iron coupon. What does that mean? Zhao Shou nodded slowly and said yes. Single book iron coupons. In addition to rebellion, all death sentences are exempt. Then you will feel improvised. No one is allowed to go unsealed. But wait for your life. Xu Qian's face was the same. Wait. The death penalty is waived. What does the latter mean? But for the sake of those faces. He pretended to understand very well. I see. It turns out that Uncle Shan Taijun means this. He thought to himself that it would be possible to change to a death-free gold medal. The supervisor specially asked Chu Kaiwei to come over and instruct. It won't be without reason. Besides, I'm the second generation of Yin. There are many enemies. It is also counted as multiple guarantees. During the conversation, Xu Qian'an and Zhao Shou came to the outer hall side by side. Second Uncle Su's ears moved. Look behind you and gaze. Woke up Su Erlang. Hurley, get up and do it. Met the dean. At this time, second Uncle Su introduced Dao Mingyan. This is Gong Chun, who is the celebrant of ceremonies. The eunuch's face immediately filled with smiles. The Viscount is in good health. If you need to recuperate, just talk to us. Let's go back to the palace and get it for you. Su Qian faintly. Of coping with the road. Thank you, Chen Gong, for your concern. This official is fine. Grandpa, Chen smiled enthusiastically. That's fine, that's fine. We are here to visit Lord Su on behalf of His Majesty. Lord Su made great contributions to the imperial court. Your Majesty will be rewarded. Su Qian said sincerely. This is all His Majesty's appreciation. Gave a lowly a chance. The so-called raising soldiers for 1,000 days. For a while. It is the cultivation of the imperial court. Only today can the humble post make meritorious contributions to the imperial court. So please tell your Majesty the truth. Humble officials dare not bow. I ask your Majesty to grant you an iron coupon for the Danshu. Hear this. Su Erlang said in his heart that the eldest brother is quite self-aware. The use of iron coupons for a single book is definitely greater than that of gold and silver cloth. Gold and silver can only make the eldest brother more chic in the workshop. Silk sen, let the gorgeous dress on the mother and sister. More and more. But it's all chicken ribs. Second Uncle Su was full of the word honor. Since ancient times, non-meritorious heroes will not be given Danshu iron coupons. Grandpa Chen's smile was not shabby. We will convey the words of Lord Su. By the way, your Majesty is quite curious about a few things. I'll ask. Sun Er and Su Qian smiled without changing their faces. Chun Gong excuses me. Grandpa Chun still had a smile on his face, but his eyes were staring at him without blinking. Lord Su slashed twice in the fight. Famous in the capital. But those two swords are beyond your limits. Your Majesty is curious how you did it. Su Qian's concise explanation. I'm ashamed to say it. It was the traitorous government that gave me strength. He did not elaborate, because this is more in line with the character of the traitorous government. It's not right to say it too clearly. In addition, he was not afraid that Emperor Yuan Jing would find a traitorous government for verification. This is a tacit understanding. The old silver coin should still be there. Gong Chen nodded slowly. Not unexpected. Then he asked the Confucian carving knife. Zhao Shou spoke first. Yunlu Academy was able to destroy Buddha 400 years ago. It's just as good now. Su Qian immediately parliament. He immediately said, thank you, Dean, for your help. Gong Chen glanced at the Dean and beckoned. Han Shou smiled and said that it was the Academy that helped. In fact, this is cheating in the fighting method. However, Buddhism itself is not down. When the Vajra array is broken, it turned out to be a monk who spoke vigilantly. Meditate on the 3rd level and the 10 crossings of the Arhats. Personally went down to discuss Buddhism with Su's wife. So Buddhism admits defeat very much. Simply didn't hold on to the carving knife. Chun Gong got up and left. We got it. Then don't disturb Lord Su's rest. Su Qian politely sent him out. Watch him go away. Only then did he slowly breathe a sigh of relief. The palace has just served the pill and is meditating. The faint sound of footsteps was heard in the vista of Tuna. He didn't open his eyes. Say, what's the matter? The old eunuch whispered to the slave who went to the Hamlin courtyard to deliver the message. The reply said that the nerds refused to change the text. And beat him up. Emperor Yuan Jing snorted coldly at this group of dog things. That's it. Grind slowly. The old eunuch said that there was one more thing. Xu Qian'an woke up. See you in the temple. Grandpa Chun brought it back. It is said that Xu Qian'an wants a single book iron coupon. Emperor Yuan Jing's expression was slightly stunned. Don't add officials to knighthood. Don't want gold, silver, and jade silk. Ask for a single book coupon. The old eunuch laughed in a low voice and said that Lord Xu was transparent in his heart. Those who know that this is the good use of His Majesty. It is the imperial court cultivation meritorious. There is no pride. If he proposes to raise the title up, Your Majesty is annoyed. Emperor Yuan Jing didn't hesitate anymore. Chun Dao said the consciousness of this kid. It's much better than the nerds in the Hanlin Academy. He asked for this Danshu iron coupon. Let him be. The reason why Emperor Yuan Jing agreed so happily. It's because what the old eunuch said was good. In a short period of time, he was knighted one after another. There is a precedent for this only in times of war. It is easy to get a lower official, but it is difficult to get into a knighthood. Emperor Yuan Jing pondered for a moment. Out of a gut feeling, he ended meditating. The appearance of the carving knife is the reason why the dean beckoned to help. The more he thought about it, the more uneasy he became. Commanded the 100 spiritual treasure officer. Met Luo Yuheng. Emperor Yuan Jing chattered to himself and said to himself, This fight is a big victory. Promote my great national prestige. I believe it will not be long before that. The barbarians of southern Xinjiang and the barbarians of the north, and the cult of the witch god will know about this. A lewd man came forward to fight. It will make all parties suspicious and suspicious. I am a great servant of national power. The effect is far better than Miriam Yang's appearance. But the voice fell. The beautiful national teacher didn't reply to him. He had no choice but to shout several times in a row. Luo Yuheng suddenly came back to his senses. Beautiful eyes are rejuvenated from slump. Tu Mei said what His Majesty said. Emperor Yuan Jing was looking at the glamorous and seductive national teacher squarely. The fox national teacher was absent-minded. Something's on your mind, but it doesn't hurt to say that. I will definitely help the national teacher solve it. As a human sect, the second grade of the Taoist hand, Emperor Yuan Jing had hardly seen it. Luo Yuheng looked so preoccupied. It was the battle between heaven and man that made him feel the pressure. Why does this woman just refuse to rest with me? My plan for immortality is stuck here. Thoughts flickered. He saw Luo Yuheng, shaking his head. Thank you for your concern. It didn't matter. Emperor Yuan Jing nodded. No more questions about state affairs. It can be known that the carving knife of Yunlu Academy appeared during the fight. I knew it was a saint's relic. It is the treasure of the academy. Is there still an inside story in this reality? Luo Yuheng asked rhetorically. Why does Your Majesty have such doubts? Emperor Yuan Jing said. The sage carving knife is not something that ordinary people can use. That Zhao Shou is a third product. Destiny may not be made. What's more, it's Xu Qian'an. Luo Yuheng said indifferently that although Zhao Shou was a third grade, however, there are still 3 fourth-grade gentlemen in the academy. It is not difficult to join forces with Cui to make the carving knife. Moreover, Confucianism and Buddhism have always had a grudge. At that time, the destruction of Buddhism was led by the academy. Yunlu Academy's action was unexpected. But it also makes sense. Emperor Yuan Jing no longer had any doubts. Breathed a sigh of relief. I laughed and laughed. I still believe in state affairs. Luo Yuheng hummed lightly. Said it was getting late. I won't send it to Your Majesty. A certificate of Emperor Yuan Jing. The heart said that this would drive me away. Xu Qian'an sent away the eunuchs in the division. Just got back to the inner hall. Was called into the study by Su Erlang. Xu Qian'an glanced at the little brother. Muttered something had happened. Xu Qian'an's expression was very strange, but not anxious, so it shouldn't be a rush. Xu Criminal Police made a judgment, said in a casual tone, Erlang. Men can't swallow it. Something to say. Xu Erlang suddenly stood up. Click. Slapped the invitation on the table. Xu Qian took the invitation, unfolded and sweep it over. Only then did I know why Xu Erlang's expression was so strange. The content of this invitation. It was to invite Xu Erlang to participate in the cultural meeting. There is a very interesting sentence above, and evil spirits go together. The inviter was Wang Jinwen, the capital of the dynasty, although Dafeng is still the same set of 3 from 4. However, due to the existence of the spiritual system, they are also the best among women. Thus, the status of women is lower than that of men, but it won't be that stacked. Therefore, it is not uncommon for female dependents to participate in the cultural meeting. Xu Qian analyzed. You are a member of Chunwei. You are invited to the conference. Fair and reasonable. Xu Qian'an snorted coldly. Said stupid. Officialdom is like a battlefield. Maybe there are a lot of stupid fools who steal the drama high. But the temple Zhugong is not among them. Wang Shoufu is the leader of Zhugong. His every move, one word, one expression. It's worth pondering. Go and chew it, or you won't know how you'll die. The eldest brother is Wei Yuan's person. Wang Jinwen and Wei Yuan are the 2 fierce tigers in the court. Fire and water are incompatible. He invited me to attend the meeting. It's not necessarily as simple as it seems. I wish to be a member of the New Year's Hall. Promising. The king's capital fears me. Wanted to kill me before I grew up. No, even if I'm on the gold list. Ranked as the first king. The government wants to deal with me. It's also a breeze. There was a huge disparity between me and his status. He's going to deal with me. There is no need for intrigue at all. Then he invited me. It's really just an ordinary cultural meeting. But that's it. It's too simple to think of the opponent. Thinking about Wang Jinwen is too simple. The distressed Xu Erlang looked at Xu Daolong, frowning and saying, Big brother, you have something to say. Xu Qian frowned and said, You go and ask the other classmates who have been working with you. See if they have received an invitation. If only you receive it. There must be something strange in that. Xu Erlang pointed to the date on the invitation and said, I naturally thought of this. It's a pity that there is no time. When we tomorrow morning, I don't have time to verify. That's it. He popped up. Peking Opera said, I understand. Xu Daolong asked with a confused expression. You understand what? Xu Erlang gasped. Wang Shoufu, this is not giving me a chance to react at all. If I don't go, and he thought of me very highly. The pie that no one has in his eyes spreads. Stay my reputation. If I go, there must be some conspiracy waiting for me on Wenhui. Ginger is still old and spicy. Xu Qian heard this. He turned around and walked out. Think so. There is no solution to this matter. Jiro, you decide for yourself. Xu Erlang hurriedly stopped him. When did the eldest brother of the unhappy Dao be as stupid as Linning? I've said so much. You still don't understand what I mean. I wanted my eldest brother to go with me. Xu Qian decisively refused. No, Erlang. You have to remember, you and I are brothers. But in officialdom, you and I are not all the way. You have your own way. Have your own direction. Don't have anything to do with me. Xu Erlang is a smart person. Silent for a moment. He sighed. He knew that the eldest brother was actually admonishing him. Don't have anything to do with Wei Yuan. Someday, even if Wei Yuan falls, the eldest brother was implicated. It's inevitable. But Wei Yuan's downfall has nothing to do with him, Xu Qian'an. His identity is only Xu Qian's brother, and not Wei Yuan's subordinates. So, as not to be liquidated. Xu Qian'an agrees with this idea. Among those bell-wrenching heroes in history, the children of the family are not of the same heart. They also belong to different forces. Such benefits are even if it is 100 million families. It's just a bone break. It will not perish. After dawn the next day, Xu Qian'an went to Haoqi building to report the situation to Wei Yuan. Behold, Wei Yuan didn't ask about King Kong's undefeated and carved knives. After learning that Xu Qian'an was in good health, let him retire to recuperate. Xu Qian'an thought secretly, Wei Gong is just an ordinary person after all. Do not practice martial arts. The theory is solid, but I can't understand the doorway. That's why I didn't ask about King Kong's invincibility. This wave is on the 2nd floor. Only I watched them on the 5th floor. After the dot, Nicholas Song and several familiar colleagues came to look for him. Everyone sat together and drank tea and ate peanuts, blowing the cowhide for a while. Everyone began to encourage Xu Qian'an to invite a guest to call Fang Si. Xu Qian'an urged them and scolded, rolling. I knew all day long to call fonts. Haven't they all seen my fighting? What did the old monk under the Bodhi tree say? Beauty is a bone scraper. Either you will know about prostitution day by day, worthy of his own help. Forget about prostitution. You're going to pull me up. Phew, nothing. Everyone knows what kind of person he is. Not afraid at all? Scolded back. Who in our yamen has more prostitutes than you? You also have the face to say this. Xu Qian'an has words. Don't spread rumors. I don't give money. How can it be considered a prostitute? Everyone, who is the one? You talk nonsense. I will definitely go to Wei Gongnai to accuse you of slander. At this time, Nicholas Song humbly begged to teach Ning Yan. I heard that you just joined the Watchmen. I'm already on good terms with Miss Fuxiang, except for one poem. Any other tricks? Xu Qian'an raised her eyebrows proudly. There's a trick to that, of course. You want to learn how to make an orin. The crowd was short of breath. Hurley asked what the trick was. Can you teach us? At this time, a majestic voice came from the door, and he was on duty. Gather people to make small talk. Do you still have discipline in your eyes? Everyone restrained the hippie, smiley face. Respectfully explained Dao Jiangjin Luo. Su Ningyin is teaching us how to sleep without spending money. Jiang Luzhong's sharp eyes swept over everyone. Snorted coldly, one by one. I knew that I had a big dream in the spring and autumn period. That's it. You talk about yours. I remember not to play for too long. The gong smiled. And neither will they demolish him. I know he must want to hear it too. Jiang Luzhong turned around and left. It just didn't go far. Then he quietly turned back, hide in a corner and eavesdrop. At this time, Nicholas Song pushed Xu Qian'an and Ningyan. You go on. Xu Qian'an pretended to be deep, coughed and said, my throat was a little dry. Nicholas Song understands in seconds, although very reluctantly, but for the sake of the orin. Still resigned, he got up and poured him a cup of tea. Xu Qian'an took a sip to moisten his throat. Eloquently, yes. Miss Fuka likes me. It was born because of a poem, but he really can't live without me. It's not poetry. Everyone hurriedly asked what it was. Xu Qian'an asked rhetorically, do you know what women hate most about men? Zhu Guangxiao, who has always been taciturn, was the first to speak. Is it unproductive? Nicholas Song also gave his own opinion. I think that there is no silver. Xu Qian'an shook his head and said, it's not right, it's not right. It's a shallow and deep talk. Hit the shift. When people heard this, they pondered what this was. What does this have to do with Miss Fuxiang inseparable from you? Xu Qian'an's face became serious and calm. I met him at the beginning. Behind closed doors, he asked me to arrive. The bottom line is not good. And then I did, so he couldn't do without me. The lights were lit, and the people fell silent. Doubts arose. Nicholas Song said worriedly, I suspect you are lying to us. But we have no evidence. Xu Qian'an said lightly, it was normal. This is not something that ordinary people can comprehend, especially men who don't have enough skills. I've already told you the trick. Whether or not you can comprehend it depends on your individual ability. Anxiety in a corner. Leave thoughtfully. Intersection is shallow and deep. In the end, it doesn't work. At first glance, these two sentences seem to have no barrier to comprehension, but I feel that there is unimaginable profundity hidden behind it. Let's go and ask Wei Gong. With the wisdom of Duke Wei, this little trick should be instantaneous. Xu Qian'an sent his colleagues away, returned to the knife hall alone. Not long after, an official came in and said, Suin Luo, the second princess summons you over. Look through the dossier. Xu Qian'an sat behind his desk and didn't move. I know it faintly. I have something on hand. I'll go later. About a quarter of an hour later, Xu Qian'an put the file down. Breathe a sigh of relief. Recently, more and more people have been pouring into the capital. Wait for the news of the fighting method to get out. I'm afraid that more martial artists will come to the capital to join in the fun, although it has greatly boosted the economy of the capital. But he was deceived and deceived. There have even been frequent cases of burglary and robbery. Xu Qian'an beckoned. In exchange for profit, tell me to write an excerpt. The first is to draw troops from the 13th line under the jurisdiction of the capital. Maintain law and order in the outer city. The second is to be a performer to His Majesty. Please march into the patrol of the inner city. The third is this period. Burglary slashes, street robbers beheaded, picking quarrels and provoking trouble on the street. Those who cause injuries to passers-by or damage to the property of stall owners are beheaded. The first two are a foreshadowing of the third. Under heavy sentences, thieves must go to extremes. Therefore, it will require a large number of troops and a master to suppress it. In order to quickly clear the crooked wind, restore law and order stability, heavy sentences must be used to deter these charlatans. Wait until you finish writing the ruts. Another gong walked in, said that Princess Huiqing asked Lord Su to enter the palace and leave a promise. Xu Qian'an frowned. How could he see me Huiqing? The two princesses invited at the same time. So who should I see first? Huiqing Taizong. It's going to be hard to fool. And thoughtful. They don't show it when they're upset about me. I don't know when I'm going to trick you. Linen is relatively simple. She is brutal and willful. Often vexatious. But in fact, there are no grudges. After losing his temper, he took it. Xu Qian'an groaned slightly. And there's an answer. He decided to offend the table. Because he looked so foolish. The other side. An ordinary-looking carriage was parked outside the palace. Xu Qian'an lifted the curtain. Get out of the car on the wooden bench prepared by the driver. Turn around and stretch out your hand to the girl who is leaning in. Su Lingyue said in a low voice, the second brother has a lot of worries along the way. Is it because of nervousness? Su Ci said lightly with a serious face, your second brother. That's what I saw today. Nor will it be stressful. Said in a low voice and said to the girl into the play. Listen more, watch more, talk less. You're just a dependent. There will be nothing. As for me, this is the king's house. The servants came up to meet him. Smiled and flattered Su Huiyuan. You're here, please come in. Su Erlang ignored him. Instead, he took a deep look at the plaque of the palace. Infinite courage and fighting spirit rise in my heart. He is a well-deserved leader of his generation, although I know that there are tigers in the mountains. Say something for a while. This is the capital of the dynasty. The wind and heat are extremely hot. The brother and sister followed the next person for a long time. Through the corridor, through the courtyard. Finally, we came to a garden. The sound of chanting could be heard in the spacious garden, and the delicate laughter of the warbler Yin Yin, a man with good facial features. The woman with a down-to-earth temperament got up, chanting poetry and sermonizing Su Gongzi. Miss Su, please take a seat. The voice fell. Work around. They raised their glasses. Xu Qian'an glanced at it, and the heart said so. Except for me. There are no other students from Yunlu Academy. These people were all students of Guozijian. But his smile remained calm. I had a good chat with my colleagues. He was a little surprised to find that these people were polite. There have been no incidents of hidden treasures or blatant provocations. It seems to be really an ordinary literary meeting. Xu Qian'an's heart sank suddenly. He knew what to do with the power of the king's capital. Blatant provocation is really low end. He must have hidden a backhand. He is worthy of being a native of the king's capital. The location already made me feel like a great enemy. Su Lingyue on the other side was arranged by Miss Wang's side. The latter smiled gently. "How old is Miss Su this year?" Su Lingyue said softly. "Just turned 17 this year." Miss Wang's smile became more and more enthusiastic. "Sister." 19, just call you Sister Lingyue, it's good. You can call me Sister Simu. After a few more words, Su Lingyue knew. Who is this gentle and amiable woman? Must be the daughter of Wang Jinwen of the capital. At this time, Miss Wang suddenly asked, "Sister Lingyue, is there a marriage match?" Su Lingyue bowed her head slightly. He replied in a whisper that he was not yet married. Miss Wang was surprised. The brothers in the family must be engaged. My sister has to hurry up, too. Su Lingyue glanced at her. There was a hint of confusion in his eyes. But in an instant, it was clear again. So he followed his wishes. Sister Simu laughed. My two brothers have not yet decided to marry. I don't have a marriage contract. Miss Wang and the girls around her heard the news. It's all a great joy. Whether it's a handsome and hateless bloody year, or the heroic Xu Qian'an, the curiosity of the nobles and ladies of the capital. But it's incomparably exuberant. At this time, a girl in purple is yin and yang weird haha. The Su family can be regarded as a fish leaping into the Dragon Gate. That Xu Qian'an was originally only from Changle County. A fast-hand Su Pingji is just 100 households of the Imperial Sword Guard. Such a family. Miss Su will be lucky to marry a businessman in the future. Now maybe I can marry into a wealthy family. Su Lingyue couldn't figure out the background of this girl. Don't dare to easily confront them on the spot. So he made a gesture of grievance, lowered her head, and looked like an injured little daughter-in-law. It's distressing. The rest of the daughters saw this. I was a little displeased with the girl in purple. Miss Wang narrowed her eyes, said softly, "Speak well." Sister Lingyue. Yenner is the niece of the criminal department Shangshu. Su Lingyue's heart moved. It turned out to be the niece of the criminal department Shangshu. He remembered Zhou Li, the son of the former household servant. Collusion with the criminal department. The matter of locking the eldest brother in the prison of the criminal department. It turned out to be an enemy. Su Lingyue forced herself to suppress her grievances. And my sister is straightforward and fast-hearted. That's right. My eldest brother is a martial artist. The second brother also has no official position or position. The girl named Yenner was speechless for a while. If you take this topic, he had to be in public. Continued to taunt Xu Qian'an and Xu Qian'an. But one was at the table. The other is Zhenglong. He's not that stupid. Miss Wang forcibly closed the topic. Okay, let's drink tea and drink tea. The meeting will continue as usual. The collaborators talked about national events from poetry. Occasionally interact with everyone's ladies for a few words. The scene is quite jovial. Su Xinglian found that she was playing hard. Quite pleasant. I made an excuse that the garden view was good. He went to the side with a wine glass. Think about what the royal capital is conspiring against. He stared at a pool of withered lotus leaves in a daze. The heart says that the flowering period is approaching. But the flower withered at this time. Then, behind him came Miss Wang's gentle voice. This is the red lotus of Qingzhou. It blooms in the middle of winter. When spring comes, it withers and withers. However, the climate of Beijing is very different from that of Qingzhou. Red lotus does not grow well. Not much ornamental value. Su New Year's Eve turned back. I looked and saw the woman with beautiful features. Now his identity is known. Then he saluted Miss Wang. He said, "Call me Simu." Su Qian'an nodded. There was no refusal. Said Miss Simu. Wang Simu smiled. Said softly, Su Gongzi's first journey is hard to admire. The table is watched every day in the room. Su Erlang is reserved and talks about poetry. It's still my eldest brother who is the best. But the article is natural. Clever hands. I've had my hands on it. Xu Qian'an was still a little weak after pretending. But the thought of using the big brother's stuff source before the narrow victory. He felt at ease again. Besides, what does the family talk about? Big brother's stuff is his own stuff. On the other side, Su Lingyue sat by the pool. Catch the breeze. Bored watching the view. Well, we didn't mean anything. He's not from that circle. What's more, these students are compared to the eldest brother and the second brother. It's really a bit off the table. Even if these people are all working together. A cold snort came from behind him. The girl in purple walked over. Scraped Su Lingyue hard. Little slut, what did you just pretend to be pitiful? Su Lingyue lowered her head. Said weakly, Sister Yunner, what do I say? I pretend to be pitiful. The girl in purple sneered and said with a smile on your little trick. And dare to make a fool of himself in front of me. Pretending to be unclear in your own heart. A cheap girl from a vulgar five-husband family. Do you deserve to sit here? Are you worthy to walk with me? Little slut like you. That's the trick that can't be put on the table. Looks like a fox. Believe it or not, my aunt and grandmother sold you to the Qinglu. Let you taste the suffering of the world. Su Lingyue still lowered her head. Sister Yona hates me. It's because of my big brother. The purple-clothed girl sneered. You are self-aware. Get out of the palace immediately. Don't let me see you again. The girl in purple has never suffered this kind of grievance. The one who was the enemy of his uncle. Xu Qian'an is of course a reason. Another reason. This little hoof just deliberately pretended to be pitiful. Win the sympathy of your sisters. Let him touch a soft nail. I feel ashamed. Su Lingyue was suddenly very aggrieved. When we was brought here by my second brother. Invitation from the palace. How could I leave the scene in the middle of the show? Why don't my sister help me? At this time, Su Lingyue stretched out her hand covertly. Pinched the small waist of the purple-clothed girl fiercely. The girl in purple turned pale in pain. Wow, I just wanted to resist. Saw Su Lingyue jump backwards by herself. Plop and fall into the pool with a thud. Then there was Su Lingyue's desperate struggle in the water. And cries for help. Her screaming and screaming rang out. It has attracted the attention of a group of talented and beautiful people. Su Qingqing, who heard the cry for help, looked for prestige. I saw Su Lingyue floating in the water. A drowning look? Her face changed dramatically. I didn't have time to say hello to Miss Wang. Then he hurried over. She jumped into the pool, grabbed Su Lingyue's waist, dragged her out of the water. Miss Wang hurriedly instructed the maid to hurry. Go to the house and get my big factory to blackmail. And the maid took the big factory. Miss Wang personally put on Su Lingyue. Su Qingqing lowered his head with a gloomy face and asked Lingyue, What's going on? Su Lingyue se nai fei. Her hair was close to her beautiful face. Weak and pitiful sobbing, I don't know. That sister told me to get out of the palace. Say that I am not worthy to rejoice with her. I ignored her. He pushed me into the pool. The girl in purple was so angry that her face turned red, pointing at Su Lingyue and scolding the slut. You dare to hurt me. Obviously, you pinched me first. Don't believe him. It's this little slut who's hurting me. He deliberately went into the water himself. One of the daughters frowned, said in a low voice, although Yinner was a little more difficult. But don't do things like pushing people into the water. The girl in purple pointed at Su Lingyue very cooperatively and said, He did it himself. He himself deliberately fell into the water. And they want to frame me. This little slut has a very bad heart. Su Lingyue ignored the eyes around her. Tears rolled down Egypt. Second brother Dao, did the eldest brother offend anyone? The sister said that the eldest brother often went against his uncle. He can't help his eldest brother. But they can sell me into the greenhouse. Su Qingqing's anger instantly burned to the top of his head. looked at the girl in purple steadily. I don't know where the girl comes from. Miss Wang, uncle who whispered to Yinner with some guilt. It is Sun Shangshu of the criminal department. Everyone suddenly realized, the way it looks, they all know it. The grievances of Sun Shangshu and Xu Qian'an in the criminal department. It is precisely because of the poem that the funeral case gave to Sun Shangshu. It is still talked about today. With Xu Shikui's reputation today, this poem will surely be passed down to future generations. Sun Shangshu will also be stinking for 10,000 years. And so it goes. Today's Yinner girl. The motive for pushing Xu Shikui's sister into the water. It's sufficient. Xu Qian'an asked, you said that my sister pinched you. So where's the pinching of you? The purple-clothed girl's eyes were full of anger, and he pinched my waist. Xu Qian'an snorted coldly. The girl has a good plan. Know that the reader is rude, unable to verify. It's up to you to explain everything with one mouth. The girl in purple was stunned. Suddenly understood the reason why this little slut pinched her waist. It's hard to explain the reason now, but she still didn't give up arguing. I can have other women verify. Xu Qian'an smiled. You turn around and pinch yourself. There are bruises. My sister is stupid. When the time comes, I won't be able to argue. The purple-clothed girl's eyes were red, pointing at Xu Qian'an and scolding you angrily. Don't be too arrogant. You're just a member. How dare you treat me? As soon as the words fell, it was a snap. Xu Qian'an gave him a backhand slap. The girl in purple cut a few steps. His cheeks were instantly red and swollen. He covered his face in disbelief and said that you dare to hit me. Everyone was stunned. I didn't expect Xu Qian'an to be so decisive at all. Don't hesitate to beat up women. Xu Qian'an stared at the girl in purple. Lung Bing said today's things. You are witnesses. I'll tie him up and take him to the magistrate now. I would like to ask you to be witnesses, but not to the criminal department. It's not to go to the government. Instead, he went to fight the Ginrin Yamen. The faces of the crowd changed dramatically. What kind of place is the Yamen of the Gung people? Inside, even if it's the words of the criminal department, it's not easy to use. Really have to think about it. Watch a premeditated murder. It is completely possible to do it, even if the criminal department Shangshu tried his best to rescue. After coming out, the reputation of the girl's family was gone. In the future, I can marry the right family. Fear flashed in the purple-clothed girl's eyes. She hurried over to Miss Wang. Crying Sister Simu, save me. I don't want to go to the Yamen. Wang Simu immediately looked at Su Lingwe. There was also a hint of pleading in his eyes. It's just that the latter glanced at the girl in purple lightly. Then he quietly brushed his head away. It's completely ignored. Wang Simu had this thought in his heart. This Su Lingwe is not good at stubble. Now she is also in a difficult situation. When Hui was held at her house. If this happened, let Xu Qian'an take people away. Then the criminal department Shangshu and his father have been at odds for life. But if Xu Qian'an is stopped, we'll completely offend her again. This is what she doesn't want to see. So Wang Simu plans to settle the dispute privately. She looked at Xu Qian'an. Said Su Gongzi. Yinner just made an unintentional mistake. I asked her to apologize. Compensate Lin Yu's sister for the corresponding losses. Can it be for the sake of the little woman? As a result, Xu Qian'an said lightly. For Miss Wang's sake. I don't have to report it. At that moment, Wang Simu led the Su family brothers and sisters into the heavenly hall. Negotiate compensation and apologies. He laughed with a smile, and Yinner's personality was rude and willful. Do such a wrong thing. Richong apologized. Su Gongzi, what do you think of 500 taels of silver? Xu Qian'an still said lightly, silver is just a trivial matter. It's all about attitude. Wang Simu glanced at the girl in purple. He shouted softly. The latter bowed his head aggrievedly. But the pressure of reality forced her to get up and apologize. I'm sorry, it's all my fault. I also asked for forgiveness from Su Huiyuan and Miss Su. Xu Qian'an nodded and said 1,000 taels less. The first smell is premeditated murder. The girl in purple was stunned for a moment. This sudden price increase. It was as if it was a slap in the face that struck her face. But she had to endure it again. I had to grit my teeth and promise to swear. After vows, you must find an opportunity to take revenge. Things are coming to an end. Wang Simu asked people to take 1,000 taels of silver tickets. With a gentle smile, he handed it to Xu Qian'an and said, Su Gongzi, hurry up and take Sister Lingwe back to change into clean clothes. The tomb is going to catch a cold. The brother and sister left the palace. Xu Qian'an handed 1,000 taels of silver tickets to Su Lingwe, a sister who is not angry. The silver ticket is collected. The future will be part of your dowry. Then he reached out and pressed Su Lingwe's shoulder. Leisurely Dao blood boiling. Wind evil does not invade. Su Lingwe felt a warm current surging from her body. Dispelled the chill. He exhaled comfortably. Second brother in a low voice. It's all my fault, 'cause you to leave the table early. Xu Qian'an accidentally cared about leaving the table earlier. To be honest, I don't have much confidence to fight against Wang Shoufu. Leave early before he arrives. This is called seeking advantages and avoiding disadvantages. It's a gentleman's doing. But that Miss Wang is not simple. Su Lingwe said with a smile. Miss Wang's bearing is extraordinary. Be well organized. It can hold the field. It was he who took care of things from start to finish. It's obviously none of his business. The attitude of admitting mistakes is very good. There's a leadership style. Xu Qian'an said with a smile. This is just one of them. You've overboard. But he will not let you change your clothes at the house. This is for the dead girl of the Shangshu family of the criminal department. It's also made for me, and look at Lin Yu. If I'm not mistaken, you fell into the water on your own initiative. The corners of Su Lingwe's mouth curled slightly. There is no weakness on his face. She smiled and said with a smile to the second brother, Do you know why Big Brother is more likable than you? Su Qingqing suddenly aroused his competitive spirit, snorted coldly, saying I've always been more likable than her. Su Lingwe shook her head, said to change to Big Brother. She now turned to shushing me. Blame yourself for not protecting me. And she actually understands everything in her heart. But he won't say it. Xu Qian'an's face froze with relief. He had to admit it. I did lose. This side of the palace. Miss Wang held a handkerchief in her hand, wiping the tears of the girl in purple. What are you crying about? You're a concubine. Since childhood, he has been showing off his power in the house. No one dares to mess with you. There are some things you can see, but the temperament that has been cultivated since childhood makes you prefer to go straight. This is not right. In the future, you will be happy to marry someone. The girl in purple screamed aggrievedly. It was the little slut who fell into the water by himself. Wang Simu laughed and said that these are not important. It matters what people think. They think you pushed it. That's what you pushed. The girl in purple said angrily. Sister, you won't help me. Miss Wang said helplessly. I can't fight those two siblings. He's in a good mood. Today is a fruitful day. The first is that Uncle Su Ci is not married. There is no marriage contract. The second is to find out the temperament of the Su family sister. Thirdly, their communication was short-lived. But Xu Qian'an's character and temperament, very much to his appetite. He's not just good-looking, strong personality. He is also smart, assertive, and scheming. What's more, he is willing to offend the criminal department for his family. Since ancient times, there have been countless men of great talent. But there are very few who put the female dependents in the family first. Can teach such a pair of scheming children. Cultivated a brilliant nephew Su, the head of the house. He must be an amazing character. When I think of this, Miss Wang's eyes flashed with a sharp light. Full of fighting spirit. This side of the palace. Su Qian stepped into Dexing Garden. Meet Huiqing in the elegant and clean hall. The eldest princess who was as cold as a fairy in the picture. Gentle and healthy. Xu Qian'an smiled and said that it was no big deal. The lowly man is as strong as an ox. It's a little hurt. Just get some sleep. Huiqing nodded reassuringly. This fight wins. The imperial court will definitely commend you. However, it is easy to get an official and difficult to get into a knighthood. If Lord Su is not short of silver, you can make a request to your father. Uncle Su Ci's future is also guaranteed. Xu Qian sighed in his heart. Who can marry Huiqing in the future? It's like a big-eared thief who got Zhuge Kongming. That's a brilliant idea. Adapt at the expense of a little benefit. In exchange for Jiro's future. Paved for the little brother's capital road. But he still regretted it on the surface. It's a pity. The lowly official has asked His Majesty for the Danshu iron coupon. Huiqing eyebrows slightly promote Danshu iron coupons. What do you want this thing to do? Although sometimes it can do wonders, but it is also possible that it is useless. Xu Qian knew what he meant. The right to interpret this thing is up to the emperor. If Emperor Yuan Jing is not credited, this thing is a piece of garbage. But Huiqing can say this kind of thing to me. It's kind of digging out the heart and lungs. Huiqing is no longer entangled. Continue to the Vajra divine skill. You really learned. Xu Qian stretched out his palm. The flesh quickly condensed into golden paint. The whole arm glowed with a pale, golden glow. Huiqing was not happy. Whispered, "Do you know that this King Kong is undefeated? How many martial artists are greedy? You're on your way now. No one will deal with you openly." The people around me watched closely. In addition, you should pay attention to yourself. Don't give people a flaw. You must know that Wei Gong is not invincible. Su Qi's heart was dusty. With the powerful combat power I showed in my fighting technique, the people in the city are salivating. Don't dare to hit me with ideas. Then Huiqing's meaning is obvious. In this capital, I am grateful to me for being undefeated. Only the nobles and the military. Xu Qian sincerely thanked His Highness for reminding him. A few more small talks. Huiqing said casually. The sketchbook you gave me last time. The maids around me watched. It said to be quite interesting. Honga doesn't look at those things, though. But it can't stand their repeated requests. So the follow-up to the book comes to this. Her Royal Highness, the eldest princess, really couldn't hold back. The face is hot. But I can't stand it and want to see the follow-up. Xu Qian smiled and said with a smile, His Highness wants it. I'll send it back to you in a few days. Huiqing nodded reservedly, and there was no need to rush. It's just a few servants who want to see it. So be it. If you are all right tomorrow, I'll send it to me tomorrow. Xu Qian looked at him. Slander in my heart. He also said that there was no hurry. Isn't this a rush? Okay, let's go back today and find the toolman Zhongli Yard.